welcome to the Canon podcast, your home for in-depth discussion on the lore, the narrative, and the big ideas of the galaxy far, far away. My name is what's my name? My name is Matthew, and I'm coming to you from Underworld North in Toronto. And
Count Dragon.
yes, no, I'm not Count Matthew. Yes, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. There, I'm coming to you from Underworld North in Toronto. I'm joined as always by your friend and man, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. I'm just going through all the exegol files. Boy, Palpatine had a lot of weird stuff in here. Very meticulous, though. Gotta love that.
I know. It's very, very dusty, those files there.
I gotta say, though, the exegol menu for their cafeteria was quite good.
I believe that. I don't believe that. And if you're listening on audio, you can also hear joining us once again. It's our senior Senate correspondent using her connections as the daughter of Mon Mothma and Take Holma.
Yes. Yeah. Basically. Yeah.
There we go. It's Ash Mothma. How you doing, Ash? Long time no see.
I'm good. You say that like we didn't see each other last week, and like we're not seeing each other on Thursday.
Well, welcome back to Ion Cat. Although, I guess it was only about a month or so since you were back on here. I was sick.
You were sick. I was not.
So I have a thought. What happened? What was going on?
I said we had fun.
You guys had fun.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe it was poignant that Chris Kempshall's The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire came out on the 4th of July, 2024. It might also be poetic that one of us, who couldn't tell, only just finished reading it a year into the current presidential administration. I don't know who that was. Of course, Kempshall is drawing on plenty of real-world examples of authoritarian regimes that have come and gone. And it's also important to remember that the implied author, Beaumont Kin, is as fictional as the Galactic Empire he is chronicling. And that intersection of real-world history and fictional narrative makes for an incredibly fascinating book that's, frankly, I think tailor-made for a podcast like ours. Joel, I think you'll agree. So it's high time we finally dug into it. Yes, it was me. I'm the problem. It's me. I finally finished reading it. And so it's high time we.
Can I just say?
Go for it.
If he didn't do 4th of July, he should have released it on May 24th.
May 24th, Queen Victoria Day.
Empire Day.
No, Empire Day.
Empire Day.
That's officially Empire Day.
Empire Day. I love it.
How come May 24th is Empire Day?
Hail glorious.
Oh, technically it's Commonwealth Day now, but in the good
British
old days.
Empire. I thought we meant Galactic Empire Day.
No, I'm talking about the glorious British Empire.
I think we call that's Victoria. Well, the last Monday in May.
It used to be it's now Commonwealth Day, but now back to in the old day there was Empire Day back.
You know.
What
good old that British Empire and the complicated things I can say about it. Go for it, Ash.
We have a holiday for it still, so take that, America.
You remember who the great rulers were? The Queen who mourned her Albert.
Yes. Okay.
Lots of things to say about the monarchy, but we're not going to get into that today.
So let's talk about plugs. There you go. Let's we'll pick these up at the end. But you can follow us on social media at ioncannon.bisky.social, as well as for Instagram, Twitter, etc. Hop on over to at the SWU. Definitely have news and other updates there. Also at the Tractor Beam Comics Reviews. I'll get into that in just a little bit. Also, if you prefer audio, as mentioned, we have the audio stream on Spotify and Apple. Also, YouTube audio, I believe, does that as well. So, if you're on Spotify and Apple, just search Ion Canon Podcast in the podcatcher of your choice. And, of course, we are proudly part of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. And here on the Underworld YouTube channel, we have YouTube memberships. We got super chats. So, if you comment down below, like we see comment down there, we'll get to it when we can. But if you super chat us, if you're willing to support the network and the channel, we are most grateful. I will interrupt Ash's yapping for money.
Yes.
That
for
is
money.
How this works.
Like you are becoming a good American, Matthew. For money.
Oh no.
For money.
No, don't say that. For philanthropic support. There we go.
Philanthropic support.
We will. Yes, we'll get to your comment immediately. But yeah, we're grateful for any support you can provide to the channel and the network as you wish. Also, we are on the Underworld Discord server, so check the link in the description below to get into our Discord server, chatting Star Wars. We're chatting about Star Wars comics. Definitely this week going to be chatting a bit more about that, I believe, especially come Wednesday. I'll get to that again in a second. But before that, Joel, what's happening in the Discord server these days?
Let me check. I actually figured out I could do events, so now I can put down the event. All right. So Friday, the 16th at 6 p.m. we're doing a Mandoverse rewatch, episodes 3 and 4, maybe 5 if we have time. Because we're rewatching The Mandalorian in preparation for The Mandalorian Grogu. Last week we did game night, and maybe the week after we'll do another game night. So we're gonna hope we can go back and forth between games and Mandalorian watch.
There you go. Fun times. Water's fine. Nice party atmo down there. And yeah, check it out. The link in the description below. And also get in there, tag Joel and ask him what his favorite live action non-Star Wars TV series is. I actually don't know the answer to that, but I have a guess. But get in the Discord and do that.
Live action, you say?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Live action TV series. I know your favorite animated series is not Star Wars, but
ooh, that's a tough one. But I might have an answer, but I'm not sure. I like so many. Actually,
that's right. Non-Star Wars.
Non-Star Wars.
Andor Star Wars, Ash.
All I watch is Andor.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, because it's not DC. Yeah, so get the Discord server. Lastly, before we actually get into podcasting proper here, Tractor Beam Comics reviews every Wednesday, right here on the Underworld YouTube channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Chris Abbott and I review the comics that came out that day. We're reviewing one that came out this past Wednesday, and one that came out this past one. Yeah, it came out this past Wednesday, and then one that is coming out this coming Wednesday. Walk, don't run. Sorry, no, run, don't walk is the right word. Fly if you can to your local comic book shop to pick up Legacy of Vader
Ram
number 12.
down the door.
Ram down the door at midnight on Wednesday. Be like, give me this comic book now. It is that good.
Yeah.
Charles Soule sticking the landing as he does. Yeah, so definitely join us for that. Joel, you are going to be joining us for that as well. So also hunt for the Talk number 5, which again I haven't read yet, but I will get to that. Capping off that series by Rodney Barnes as well. So yeah, check that out. And then of course the tractorbeam.bisky.social. All right, I got through the plugs. We got through the plugs. Time for our week in Star Wars. Ash, you're the guest. I'll put you on the spot. What have you been Star Warsing this week? I think you give a clue to it.
No.
Other than dropping things on your desk.
Oh, okay. I promise that it's complete, but I built this.
Nice.
Home 1.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, nice.
It was a Christmas gift from one of my friends.
Nice.
I built Home 1, and yeah, I had a good time doing that. I finished reading Sanctuary finally. Which was a phenomenal book. Yeah. It was one of those books that I was like, dang, I really wish I'd read this like sooner. But it's not like I read it years after it came out, you know what I mean? So I can kind of let myself off the hook. That was a very slight dig at you, Matthew, about what we're doing.
I got that one pretty quickly.
That's the Bad Batch one, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. You're talking. Yeah. You're talking about how late I read Galactic Empire.
Yeah. What else? I started rewatching Andor with some of my friends in the real world. So, and like season 2. So I'm just sat on their sofa, you know, hyperventilating, freaking out, not okay. We only watched the first arc, and I was hyperventilating. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign of things to come.
Can I make a funny joke about the Home 1 Lego, by the way?
Yeah.
If you break it by accident, then you can just say, I'm prepping for how this Home 1 will look like in Ahsoka Season 2 after Thrawn deals with it.
I mean, actually, because it was still functional in like after all of that because it was essentially a museum piece by the time that the First Order rolled around.
They could have fixed it. They could have put it back together.
That's true. That's true. It could be like a Razor Crest situation.
Like, you know,
refurbished version.
We know what happened to the Enterprise D, guys. And in Picard, there it is. So
if you take if you have to rebuild part of Home 1, how, like, it's like the ship of Theseus.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Off of that. When does it cease to be Home 1 and start becoming Home 2? Oh, that I found it. I found the thing. 1 second.
Oh, you actually broke it.
And also, because I'm super lucky. I work at a movie theater. I've been watching the Mandalorian and Grogu trailer on the big screen nonstop. The first time I saw that trailer, I wasn't really feeling it. It was on my phone. And I was like, okay, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the movie, but is it going to hit this? Like, is it going to hit the way that I feel like it should? And then I saw it on the big screen at work. Mind blown.
Which version?
Mind blown.
Which version? Because they've been changing
the first one. First one. Yeah. Oh.
I know there are like 2 versions of it.
Nobody's getting me to do anything while that trailer's on. I'm like.
So you time your breaks for. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I've been serving in the theater a lot, so I'm very lucky. But I have just like slipped in and just been like, ooh.
See, I thought you were about to say you've been watching Mandalorian episodes on a big screen.
I wish. No, but rewatching The Mandalorian and Ahsoka is in the pipeline to prepare for Mandalorian and Grogu. So
it's a good idea.
You know,
I'm thinking of Skeleton Crew with my dad.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to rewatch Skeleton Crew with my friends.
Oh yeah. That was good.
All right, Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, Joel, what have you been up to this week? What are you thinking about this week? Oh, you have one more. Sorry.
One more thing. Sorry. This past week. Genevieve O'Reilly turned 49. So happy belated birthday, Mother. That was just under a week ago.
Yes.
So it was on the 6th, which is horrifying that Genevieve O'Reilly's birthday is the 6th of January because.
Whoa.
That's right. I mean, this book birthday is July 4th.
Yeah.
Genevieve O'Reilly.
A little bit timely.
There you go. I will fold that into my theology time, what January 6th is really about. Don't worry. It gets redeemed. Joel, what have you been up to? What have you been thinking about in Star Wars this week?
Well, I think a lot about things. I got this T-shirt
Pick
for
one
Christmas,
or two.
Christmas. So this cool
nice.
Star Wars T-shirt I got for Christmas. But it's another thing that I can actually show, part of the gifts-thon. But I was thinking about something since last time we were all together. We were talking about Legends characters in Star Wars. And honestly, after doing some thinking, after doing some deep thoughts, deep ponderings of the cosmic will, I kind of came to the conclusion, you know what? I do think eventually Mara Jade's going to come back into canon in some way. I think they are. I think you can predict the future of Star Wars and that they will bring back at least every popular EU thing in some way. Maybe not 1-to-1. I don't think you can ever do something ever 1-to-1. But Mara Jade's up there in terms of like the most mainstream concepts and ideas of Star Wars that, quite frankly, I think they're gonna one day just break glass and like bring back Mara Jade when they feel like they need to.
It's not an emergency yet, Joel.
Yeah, but I think it will happen in the next 10 years, right? Because almost every big EU thing has come back. We've done Darkseid Solo Kid. We did Palpatine come back in clone bodies. We got Thrawn back. We're gonna hopefully get Revan if Photor happens, please. Honestly, Mara Jade and aliens from another planet galaxy invading the Star Wars galaxy. Those are kind of the last 2 things that are gonna happen in the next.
The Vong.
You never know.
That's the break glass in case of emergency. Is the Vong.
You never know.
This is the Grisk, but not the Vong.
I don't think the Grisk are that the Vong, but
no, fair enough.
Can we come back on the 12th of January in 2036? And then if Mara Jade isn't back, what will you do, Joel?
I will say, to be fair, you never know. They might cancel half the Star Wars movies and then they'll switch to virtual reality for a little bit.
Yeah.
So you never know.
3 is happening now anyways. So.
Exactly. They'll delay 20 movies, so I
The
might have a
second
lot of
order.
excuses why they haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
So hey, they brought it back into Lego form apparently in the Lego
Oh yeah,
Rebuild
that's
the
true.
Galaxy
Yeah.
thing. So we're halfway there.
Yeah,
So,
they also brought Revan.
yeah, and maybe Kyle Katarn. There was a Lego
Yeah.
that looked exactly like Kyle Katarn. So
Yeah.
I predict in the next maybe 10 years, if Star Wars things are going apace, it will happen. I'm not saying it's going to be 80 Adams, but I'm just saying I think it will happen eventually.
I wonder if it already has.
Probably to some
I'm
extent.
trying to find her.
What if
I know she's in
what
like
if
a
it's one of
card.
those things? What if it's one of those things where they've already done it, but we don't know that they've done it? Because I don't have all of the answers.
Stefano Raffaele.
We'll find out in 2027 when Amy Adams revealed to be
Tavaren,
Mara Jade.
Stefano Raffaele, and Charles Soule. Is that Stefano? Like,
no, I think it's gonna be Mara Jade connected to Luke Skywalker and they have a thing.
I don't know.
So yeah, I think Ryan Gosling is gonna actually be playing Luke Skywalker in Starfighter.
Honestly, sure, why not? I mean that. Yeah. No, we can play Cade Skywalker. Duh.
Here's the thing. Tavaren, we don't know her real name.
Yeah. She's a redhead.
She's a hot redhead.
What if Mon Mothma is no? Okay.
I don't know, Matthew. I think they're gonna have her just be connected to Luke, and they're just gonna do that arc. I think that's just too.
Yeah.
I guess people will be. I don't know. People have knows. Maybe we'll see. Get that video of George Lucas pretending to be so pissed about it. That's funny.
I have like a very crude and sad joke because you know how like George thinks of himself as Luke Skywalker. He hears Mara Jade and just goes Marsha, Marsha. Nope. Luke's not allowed to be happy. I didn't get a happy marriage. Neither does Luke. Although he's happy now, so thank goodness.
Yeah.
So maybe he's gone. Maybe he's finally. Done.
No shade ever to Marsha Lucas because we owe so much to her. But George Lucas's wife is gorgeous. Oh my god. And he knows it. And that's the important part. Ryan Gosling's gonna play Mara Jade. So true, bestie.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we will see in 10 years. I do predict there's some big EU thing will come back.
I can definitely see Mara Jade coming back. I mean, there's definitely the appeal. I don't know. I think they're pretty set on Luke staying the course with the whole traditional, bringing back the traditional Jedi thing, and that. I mean, then Kylo Ren or then Ben Solo doing his thing with Snoke and
they don't have to get married. They could just be friends, and then Mara Jade lives that post him. Old lady Mara Jade,
maybe
she's still pretty good looking. So Amy Adams again.
Good fan casting for Amy Adams, but yeah, I don't know. Ash, what do you think of that? What do you think of Mara Jade coming back and like her origin story or not?
I mean, okay, I would love if Mara Jade came into canon. However, if I had to pick a redheaded woman from the Empire in Legends to come back, it would be Dalla. Force Lucasfilm to say that Tarkin is bisexual.
Okay.
I'm hoping for Yizan Izar myself, but yeah, Dalla could be second. Yes.
I will have to. There's my gap in knowledge about Legends.
I mean, Armando's already canon.
True. We got Daddy Izard. We need the god.
Mm-hmm.
We need her.
I'll have to look up who Dalla is. This is an Ion Canon.
Natasha Dalla was Tarkin's lover.
Okay.
Promise me you're not going to look too closely at the age gap between the two of them. It's kind of.
Well, I'm looking at the age gap now.
Oh God.
I mean, small tangent. I gotta tell you this, but this has something to do with Dalla. I was playing D&D on Saturday, and I had like a spell that was basically I get to gas an entire room, and it's like, I pulled a Dalla. I just gassed all the enemies at once, got rid of a whole room of goblins in one go. So
yeah, they're goblins. They're not humans. What was I going to ask? Well, like talking about age gap. I mean, Tarkin and that officer, he's got to be pretty young, and he's an officer. There's that weird power balance there too in the Fakpov. So
if you want to talk about age gap, Han and Leia have an age gap, man. Thank you, prequel
Han and Leia have an age gap.
True.
Padme and Anakin have an age gap.
Rey and Kylo
Mom and I have an age gap.
Rey and Kylo have an age gap, except not in the maturity gap. It's reversed.
That's true.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Before we move on, I want to just say I like Visions better in English. Apparently, is my thing. I finally gotten back to watching Visions, and maybe the problem for me was I was like, okay, I want to watch the Japanese version with English subtitles because that's more authentic to the original studios that made it, volumes 1 and 3. But because it's taking, my issue with Visions was that it was taking familiar imagery and using it in a different history, an unfamiliar history, and that was just throwing me out of joint. That was just throwing me out of whack. It was just a subjective experience of it. I wonder if the language was yet another complication on that throwing out of joint, just different and way too out there, but also looking like Star Wars. So yeah, the English dub is helping with that. Also, when Chris Abbott suggested I watch like 1 or 2 episodes at a time, he was right, because there's a little too many episodes with the kids in trouble emotional trope. It's still my concern there. So yeah, I kind of want to. I'm taking a pace. I haven't finished it, and then I'm not watching Ninth Jedi yet because I'm going to watch the Ninth Jedi episode volume 3, because when I'm going to wait until the series comes out, then I'll watch the volume 1 episode, then the volume 3 episode, and then I'll watch the series, because I watched the volume 1 episode of the Duel first, and then volume 3 episode. So yeah, definitely appreciating it more, but not as much.
Have you read Ronin?
No, I have it in my Audible library. Yeah, I need to. Yeah, maybe one day.
Some people say it's better than pretty much every Star Wars book ever, and I probably agree with that.
Really? All right.
Yeah, they say it's like this is like what real literature is like. Yeah.
It is up there. It is practically it's what I would put in like these are Star Wars books. This is the Andor tier of Star Wars books. And that it's so good that it is just unbelievably amazing. And then you're like, oh, this is also Star Wars. Like, how did we deserve this? Did we deserve this?
Probably
That's
not.
how good it is.
Okay. I'll put it in my ever expanding to read list for this year. See if we get to it. But at the top, speaking of my ever expanding read list, at the top of my reading list, number 2, at the top of my Star Wars block of reading, which you can see on my personal Instagram, the stories there, was The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire. Finally finished it. As promised, I finished it. I read the first half a few months ago, I think, and then I paused to read something else. I forget what. But then I came back to it.
I think it was later. I think it was Master of Evil.
Oh yeah, Master of Evil. Yeah, so that's why. But then I came back to this one, and yeah, here we are. So Joel, will you take it away? Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire.
All right, let us go. Well, so this is going to be interesting. Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire. It is well, I guess I should just start off by just saying Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, I think it's a fascinating exercise in the concept of fictional world building. Because I always like to say, Star Wars is very interesting when it comes to its world building, especially Lucas's world building. Because Lucas's world building, in my opinion, is more about the vibes than the technicalities of it all, right? It's all about, these are the bad guys because they look like bad guys, they dress like bad guys, or how you think bad guys would look in our pop culture Americana, right? And the black and white and got some icky green, or they got an old man in a hood cackling like a witch, throwing lightning at you. With the good guys, they're all colorful and spunky and cool. So for Star Wars world building has always been a little on the vibes, but never on the technicalities, how things function. All the deep lore stuff that probably sometimes you can't fit into a movie or a TV show. But over the many years, we have tried to expand that with RPG books, lots of source books, expanded universe stuff. But we've never decided, what about an in-history novel? I'm sure the galaxy has history books, you'd think. I guess paper. I mean, they got the Shaker Jedi Tech, which have paper.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think we have, over the years, been trying a little bit. With, I got Skywalker's A Family at War over there in my bookshelf. I did not get Battles That Changed the Galaxy. I should have gotten this one.
You should.
But I think... Oh, no, I mean, I've read it. It's just I don't have it. But this is fascinating because I think this is like the peak of this idea of an in-universe novel where it's written by a character from the movies, which I think is kind of cool. They didn't just decide to make up a character from scratch. They decided, hey, let's take that the guy who played Mary in Lord of the Rings, Beaumont Kin, and and it's like, hey, let's he's supposed to be a historian, even though they don't really go into that in the movie. Let's give him a book. Let's give him a book, and we'll have an actual historian write the book and pretend to be the character. So you get Chris Kempshall gets to be actor as well as novelist for a day, which would be fun. Which I would love to do if I ever tell me to break Palpatine's autobiography. That would be fun for me. And I think it's just such a fascinating consolidation of, quite frankly, the last 40 years of imperial lore and how we've tried to build the empire up as best we can to make it what I like to call, quote unquote, academically fascist. I'll go into a whole thing later about fascist as a vibe, and then fascism is just basically a slur word for anything bad, and how we try to take as close to real world historical context as best as possible and apply that to this piece of fiction right here. So obviously those are my opening thoughts of the book. Because I'm actually gonna throw it to Matthew because he has not read this book for a while. Well, me and Ash have been hammering at him for years to read it.
I've been hammering at myself, to be fair.
So I want Matthew to kind of give us his opening salvo of what he thought of the book overall. Because I'm sure Ash, you've talked about it so much, I want to hear this.
Yeah.
We know what Ash thinks about it.
We know what you think. I'm sorry.
We'll go over.
So yes, it definitely takes this sort of fictional world, and you'll get into that in a bit. It makes or kind of a real world-esque thing of it, or look at it. What it does is really crafts this grand narrative through multiple stories, especially the films, and that's really coherent, and that there's really strong focus. I have down there. I mean, especially in the fall part of the Galactic Empire, the second half of it that I read more recently, very clearly over and over pointing at this pattern of the more you tighten your grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. I mean, that's the narrative. And so it's the first half is the Empire tightening its grip, and the second half is tightening its grip so tight that systems slip through its fingers. And so, yeah, kudos to Chris, especially for really drawing that out and teasing that out and pulling it together. Like I would read this. It's definitely not for a day, and I know you didn't mean that, Joel, but like how much time and research and effort did the real Chris Kempshall have to do to put this thing together? It must have been immense. I think he had folks to help him out. He had, I guess the equivalent of research interns and whatnot, but probably also Leland Chi and them too. So to kind of just help point things out and spot things. But to really, it takes a lot of work to have all this data that we already have. Like you said, we're coming up on 40, what year is it? 49 years of Star Wars storytelling. 49 of Star Wars storytelling, and all these data points, and to weave them in together and say what is the story. So it like, I know it's kind of through the mind of a historian. I think of Kristen Baver, Kitchen Braves, approaching with the mind of a journalist, right? A journalist is always, what's the story, what's the overall thread, and really well done, well put. That's kind of my opening thought. There is, it's very clear what is being said here, and I'll get into a bit more of that further down, but it's very clear about what Beaumont Kin thinks, what Chris thinks. That's another thing also to say, explicitly having, here's some literary theory for you, explicitly having the implied author be both, the kind of the real, I mean, you have to have an actual real implied author, what Chris Kempshall wants us to see, but then also to say it's this fictional character, Beaumont Kin,
right? And
you see kind of what would Beaumont know and what might he not know that we might know, because we've seen the story, but he might not have. His viewpoint from Mexico, his viewpoint as a white-skinned male, that all that. The similarity, I say Beaumontifer Kempshallkin is kind of the similarities, like where the real world kind of seems to break through, at least by suggestion.
Yeah.
But also, what's kind of putting yourself in the mind of this fictional character that was, of course, brought to life by Dominic Monaghan, because he won a bet with J.J. Abrams. But hopefully it was Liverpool. Hopefully it was a Liverpool game. I don't know if it was, but that's a good nod to Chris's team and my team. But yeah, there we go. Those are my opening thoughts, and we'll get into more details further on.
We'll get into that, because I'll just say there's a reason why I probably wouldn't be able to write this book, and it's not for the reasons you think. But we'll get into that later. Ash, I'm going to turn to you, and I'm going to kind of twist the question a little bit for your perspective. What do you make of this book as a big Legends fan who probably has read as much Legends as maybe me, and kind of like where this stands as like another attempt? I don't want to say attempt, because like those previous attempts failed, but like as another book that has once again fleshed out the Empire from the fictional world building perspective, the same way the good old Imperial source book did in the 80s.
So I actually have not read the Imperial source book from the 80s, but I have read the Imperial handbook that's in like if you've got like the slipcase, it comes with like the Book of Sith, like the Bounty Hunter book, the Jedi Path.
I have
that. It's somewhere in my room. But I think that this was it was so in depth, and whereas like the Imperial handbook, for example, I know that's not exactly what you asked me about, because that's more of like theoretical book, and it's for like, I would say, a younger audience. This book is very much not pulling punches. It acknowledges like all of the horrors that the Empire perpetrated, and all of the things that it did, and it holds the people accountable. It doesn't allow you to be like, oh well, the Empire is just Palpatine, like people only did what they did because of Palpatine. It's just like, no. These people had their prejudices reinforced and placed on like the highest pedestal. They were given permission to be cruel. And we see so much of that in our real world today that it ceases to be theoretical. And it's
like the last 1,000 years. That's the last thing.
Well, I mean, even if we just look at, say, Project Cinder and the concept of, hey, Palpatine was like, if anything happens that removes me from this power that I want, the entire galaxy is going to pay for it. That is my command. And I saw somebody say, now I might be a little bit inflammatory here, that the things that Trump has been doing this past year to America and to the world as a whole is a punishment for him being ousted in 2020. And now that he has that power again, he will do whatever it takes. He doesn't care if he burns the world to hold on to it. The things that he is sacrificing to protect his secrets, like his crimes, and to make sure that he is not held accountable for them, is insane. He is starting wars. He is threatening to invade allies. He is literally selling out his country. He is willing to kill the people in it through starvation, through police violence, through war. He is willing to do whatever it takes because he hates that he was voted out in 2020.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't agree with any of that, but to a certain extent, I think there's a lot more just stupidity. Although I do think there is some nihilism in there.
It's calculated, though.
Well, I mean, if anything,
he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I don't.
Somebody knows what he's doing. Somebody knows.
See, I actually don't agree with that either. I don't think anyone knows what they're doing. I think we're just people who don't know what they're doing with a lot of power, which is actually scarier. It's
a little scary. I do think, if anything, if there is something coordinated, it could be about 2020. It could also be the Epstein list. It seems to be. I mean, a lot of distractions there. But yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Operation Cinder, kind of the Palpatine parallel there. Maybe. I mean, there's also, I think, Joel, the question you're going to get into is, and you've brought this up a lot, is what, if anything, makes our time different from previous times. Maybe
not much.
Yeah, but it is also. Here's the question for you, Joel. I want to ask you this privately. Ask you now.
Ooh, yeah.
Sure, all this has happened before. All this will happen again. You got to admit, this is one of the lower times in the current timeline.
I mean, sure. I mean, but you know, if humanity can go through the Bronze Age collapse and come out of it,
yeah,
we might be able to come out of this too. We might just have to start civilization again.
There might be no more Star Trek. You won't believe it.
Well, I just run time, people. It's gonna be a slow, painful decline. I'll promise you that much. It ain't gonna happen quickly. Fun times.
On that note.
No, I never expected this to be a happy conversation.
Yeah, that's true. What are we talking about here?
Well,
the fall.
The part of, like, there is a huge part of it that is part of the study of history, and also looking at the world that you're in now, is that you're supposed to have these conversations. They're not supposed to be fun. They're not supposed to be easy. You're supposed to, be challenged. You're supposed to feel something, because this is about what I mean. So yeah.
You're cutting out a little bit there. Excitement.
We'll say that. What were you kind of cut out a little bit? What was that again? What was that?
Oh no, I banged my arm off my desk, so I'm really glad if you didn't hear that.
Oh, good.
Oh,
we didn't hear that. There we go. That's what happened. There.
Yeah.
No, but what was the point you were making? Because it's probably a good one.
Well, that is ultimately the point of studying and discussing history, is that we have these things. That was the whole point.
Yeah.
You actually bring up an interesting point, because it's actually something. I don't want to call it a criticism of the book, but it's a limitation of the book. Is obviously, because we're living in a fiction. This is a fiction. The book only has so much can go off of, right? It's got the movies, the comics, the shows. Unfortunately, when you think like its real world counterpart, Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, that holds all of German history up to whenever that book was written. So there's a lot of what I call historical context, which I think is super important. Because this is why I always go on and on about unprecedented times, blah blah blah, and it's like, buddy, have you studied history? Like, there's actually more precedent in things than you probably you probably don't ever want to admit. Like for example, Bush administration. They're the reason why people just call Trump Bush term 4. And that's just some people. And unfortunately, the one thing about this book, and this is not Chris Kempshall's fault, of course, this is just something I think we gotta acknowledge, is he only gets up to a little bit of High Republic, whereas our world is 10,000 years old of human history, and I'm kind of a big believer in. I don't want to say like everything is connected in like a conspiratorial kind of way, because that might be a little too much. But retroactively, you can kind of like look at like the downfall of the Carthaginian Empire, and that can you can trace that all the way up to World War II and why all that happened.
The Carthaginian Empire. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the Carthaginian Empire split. With one country became France, the other became Germany, and then you kind of have that middle part of the two that France and Germany have been fighting over for the last couple of years. And that's just I'm not saying like it's all predetermined in destiny. Of course not.
Carthaginian or Carolingian?
Carolingian. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Carolingian.
I knew what you were talking about.
Charlemagne's Empire.
Yeah.
Little Charlie. And it's like I would love it's like if the Star Wars galaxy were fleshed out to be like, well, the Republic did this, and this is precedent, and 1,000 years ago, and Palpatine took that, and obviously got the Sith, which are old as heck. But unfortunately, that is the one problem. I mean, maybe this is more of a me problem because I love real world history. Of like, there's no historical context a lot of the time, and it's sort of like, well, you can't kind of see this coming. Where it's like, I think a lot more people sort of saw this coming in hindsight. So, that's my one kind of, that's kind of the history. That's the historian in me where it's like, if you want to learn about World War II, you got to learn about World War I and the Prussian-Franco War and go back and back and back and back and back. And so, that's my one critique of this.
So what you do is the academic thing of a further study on this is warranted, but is outside the scope of this current, that's what you got to do. But it's true, right? I mean, to mention, I mentioned the High Republic and the Nile conflict might have been useful because I think by 2024, we would have been able to say, okay, there was a conflict with the Nile that led the Jedi, that spooked the Jedi into retreating into Coruscant, etc. But that being said, I mean, he does definitely do the Clone Wars and the Late Republic, and that, because that's a very clear, you can draw that very clear line from the centralization of power in Coruscant to the Late Republic to the rise of the Empire and through the Clone Wars and all that. But yeah, I do get what you're saying.
Like I'll give you like my example, and then we can move on to the next point. I listened to a podcast about the Portuguese, right-wing corporatist state of the Estado Novo from 1933 to 75. They started their story in like 1800 with the fleeing of the monarchy to Brazil before they and they spent like an hour talking about that before they even got to the 1922 coup. So because they thought all that context was important to just talk about this small 30-year period of time. So that's just the one. That's just something that's a me thing. It's not even a big deal.
I literally say this every time I read this book, which is very often, that because every single time I notice something else, but I'm really hoping that we get like another edition of this book that covers things like Andor season 2, Ahsoka season 2, because the stuff with Thrawn is still incomplete. Like,
I love how they handle that.
Yeah. So go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
Like, the Mask of Fear. Like, there is so much that he couldn't be told because those things were still being worked on. And yet, like, one of the big things I love about this is if you're fairly up to date on Star Wars, there's no spoilers in this book.
True.
If it's a spoiler to you that the First Order is eradicated or that the Empire falls, then I don't know how far behind you are on Star Wars, but it's so difficult to get spoiled from this book, because it's like when people are upset about being spoiled by a book that came out or a play that came out like 400, which happened in my high school English classes a lot. What do you mean Romeo and Juliet die at the end? You spoiled the play for me. And I'm like, we're doing our test on this play today. You're supposed to be finished reading it. Like,
that's funny.
We acted that scene out. How are you upset about this, right? But
I mean, according to that musical we saw, good musical, and Juliet. There, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what person who hasn't watched at least the original 6 movies is doing reading this book. I mean, in theory, I don't.
Well, you never know. That'll be interesting.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting. So
I mean, yeah. So kind of the second point I want to do, and it's something I don't think. I mean, it's not something the book does. This is sort of like an overarching thing I've noticed in fandom. And this is something the book does not do. I want to make it clear. But it is something that even people like us contribute to, unfortunately, like even if we don't mean to. I call it the Wikification of fiction. Now, we all love Wikipedia. It's fun to go to. It's helpful. But let's face it. There are definitely a lot of young, I'm not going to say it's all young, but definitely a lot of young people who just know Star Wars lore and their Star Wars because they either watched the video or read the Wikipedia file. And to be fair, I used to be like that too, because that's how I started knowing a lot of legend stuff before I eventually started reading it. But the thing is, reading a Wikipedia article and having a narrative are 2 very different things. I can read all of Jason Solo's entire burst to death, because we covered his burst to death, in his Wikipedia article and see all his adventures. That's not the same as reading all those books and getting like the narrative, the emotional context, the resonance, the the characterizations, the prose. Same with the Empire. To add a faction, you can read it all on Wikipedia. It's pretty well fleshed out at this point. It's pretty good. But again, but the thing I like about this book again is that at least it tries to carve. It's like an actual good historical book. Has a narrative. Has a point to say. Has something to say. Here's a real world historical book, Fascism by Carl Gottfried. It's not just a look into fascism, which it is, but it's also, it's got a narrative. It's got some sort of point to make about, what he thinks fascism is and how it's more of he thinks it's more of an interwar period of time than something that's nebulous like that. There's different books depending on different people you read. Even Rise and Fall of the Third Reich itself is like that. And one thing I appreciate about this book, again, is it tries to have a narrative to it. It's not just a textbook. And even textbooks to some extent have a narrative. So, it's so different than just say what I call, again, the Wikification of fiction, where just, I want to read a Wikipedia article about this and no, I don't want to watch the movie and have with the lore and with the music and the context and the prose. Character drama, just like, hey, Jason Solo fell the dark side and then he died. Or the Yuzong Vong, they, I don't know, are weird religious war people. Like, I don't know, I never read the books. They might come off weird. I didn't read New Jedi Order, but then I might read New Jedi Order one day. Like, oh, this actually makes sense. Okay. So, this book does not do that, and I appreciate it. I just kind of wanted to rant a little bit about Wikification of fiction. I think it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think what really helped with this book is where Beaumont Kin interjects himself into the story, which I thought was kind of odd. Like I'm used to more academic contexts where you don't do that. Now I admit I haven't read much of those more popular histories, but I was surprised. Oh, he's really reflecting on even his own experiences with the resistance and how that relates to what the rebellion must have gone through, or talking about the emotional weight. She mentioned the emotional weight of the Empire's atrocities, and bringing out the drama of this fictional narrative, this fictional story that you can't distill it to a set of facts. And that's the thing is, you know, I love my trivia. I love my Star Wars trivia competitions.
Doesn't.
You know, I mean, even, but it's not just that, right? I'd rather get the meaning of a story, the character arc. And yeah, so I agree that this showed the meaning of it. You know, I'm thinking about how, you know, Alex Damon started Star Wars Explained to finally win the Dragon Con trivia contest, but he couldn't stay there. Like he couldn't just, yeah, he does a great job presenting facts, but he also had to move into talking about meaning and ideas and characters and reviewing and the news and whatnot, because if you really try to bring a more thoughtful approach to things, you can't just, I call it being nerdy. And that's not trying to be too pejorative, but yeah, it's there's more to it. And so I think this book could have risked doing that, right? It could have risked being that kind of academic thing. I do wonder, I have Chris Kempshall's actual textbook on it, Politics in Star Wars. I haven't given
so
I
good.
need to give that a read too.
It's so good.
It's
But
a
I'm
little
guessing,
out of date. It's a little
sure,
out of date.
but I'm guessing, you know, but
so
it's
good.
also academic. But
Yeah.
so there's a time and place for it. Of course,
Yeah.
that's, I mean, that's Chris Kempshall is just the implied author, Chris Kempshall, doing, you know, looking at a piece of fiction. So it's a little different. But yeah, it that human element, it really brings a human element in it, and it doesn't, and I think that's what Beaumont Kin, we get a sense of Beaumont Kin in this is a character, and he's a character who doesn't want to look away, right? Or knows that he can't look away, and that the point is people, I mean, kind of brings it up, right? That the point is people are tempted to, right? We have, you know, Ransom Casterfo, he ends up seeing the light, but for a bit he was kind of, he had to meet Leia in order to actually see, oh no, wait a minute, this kind of scarf here, you know, this wouldn't dare be a Nazi scarf, obviously not. This is, of course, this is fine because this is fictional, because I'm in the real world, but you know what I mean, like, oh wait a minute. So
well, this is actually funny enough. This is
you know,
something Chris has gone on a little bit, and it's something I think is interesting too. Is like, you know, can history, and this, I'll explain what I mean. Can history truly be objective? And you know, I'm not gonna, you know, I think we have some way we got to be careful. You know, things like, oh, the Holocaust is not, you know, that gives you some slippery stuff like that for sure. But at the same time, you know, and I guess, you know, this will kind of preview a little bit to my own views and stuff. Like, I don't know if I could write the book like this, because I just have a very cynically clinical view of the world, especially after reading history. Like, I would probably write this a lot with a, like, you know, not to necessarily deny things, of course not. But you know, every historian does come with a certain point of view. You know, I'm not going to, you know, whether it's overly simplistic, you know, left, right, liberal, whatever, you know, that sort of thing, communist, Marxist, whatever. But also in terms of, like, you know, just like, you know, if you are a strong, fervent, black and white, you know, democracy versus, you know, fascism kind of guy, then you know, you're gonna have that twinge of bias, of course. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you know, like I feel like I would write a very cynical, like, and this is where I would add like historical context, where it's like, you know, this galaxy has like had 50 empires in its history. Are we that surprised it did this again? The Pious Day lasted 1,000 years. Palpatine couldn't even last 25.
Maz Kanata wasn't surprised.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I would have like the kind of the maybe the kind of clinically, you know, maybe cynical view of this for sure. And I'll get into some of the real world reasons why. But you know, it is one of the things where it's like, you know, I mean, again, you know, we're again wikification fiction. This is still an author having a point of view, trying to create a narrative with historical facts of, you know, using the historical facts to try to create this narrative. You know, I talked about this a while back, Matthew, with like a Roman, this Roman historian whose name escapes me, who's like did everybody up to Nero. And you know, while I don't think he was making things, maybe someone like Tacitus, I don't remember. But anyway, you can kind of like, while he didn't make anything up, you can kind of tell, like, he was an Augustus fan, and he kind of made everybody else to look bad, so Augustus never looked always looked good. But yeah, if you want to bring up, ask anything about the wikification of fiction, especially in online spaces.
I mean, like, here's the thing. I think that wikis in general have their place, and like again, like little short form videos also have their place. Like sometimes I will be like, I know this thing, I'm just confirming this before I say it, or I'm double checking something while I'm doing something, because I'm like, I'm not going to reread an entire 300-page book to check one fact. But I know that if I pick up one of these books, I'm probably going to be sat there all day reading it, right? So I'll like pop over to like, you know, a Star Wars Explained video or like a Wikipedia entry and be like, okay, yeah, all right, cool, right? But like for me, it's like, it's a resource, but I also have been taught how to use that kind of resource as like a double checking, because, you know, all of the resource, like all of the citations are listed on like any good wiki, right? And you can double check their sources and it's great, but it's always like been a jumping off point for my research, right? I can't stay confined on like a Wikipedia page or even a Wikipedia page. I will be clicking links. I will be figuring all of this out. I'm like, how does this all tie in together? Because my brain needs that, because out of context, most things don't make all that much sense. But like, yeah, I think if this book had gone too far though into the historical context, it would have been, like, of course I still would have read it. I still would have loved it, but that's like one of those things that it kind of needs to be a concise text.
Yeah.
Right? Because 100% they have all of these other texts that exist in universe. So it's like, if you need to double check something with the historical context, you can go to another text. He's not like looking at history text 100%. Give me any like Star Wars like history text, I'll read it. I'm gonna read it several times over. But even in like my own history writings, there was a point where I'd be making too many connections, and my historical context section of my essay would be somehow longer than my already 25 to 30 page essay that was needing to be trimmed down. So I would be at 50 pages and my teacher would be like, you need to cut this by like 80%. And I'd be like, I don't know what to cut because all of it is important. And so part of me is really glad that, like, on top of everything else, because I think the big discussion where like they solidified that this book was going to happen was at Anaheim in 2022. So it's like 2 years between that discussion and publication of this book. And I don't know how he could have handled it if he had done all of that. You know what I mean? But also because of the destruction of so many materials that the Empire participated in, right? They weren't just purging their own files in, like, especially in Operation Cinder, and you see it actively in Alphabet Squadron, but they also purged like Jedi archives. They purged records on other planets. Like they were purging records of the people who had these chain codes that had died. They'd be like, oh yeah, code's redundant now, and you can find out nothing about these people. Like there are
they may have some good reasons to yeah,
but we also don't know like who those people were in order to determine, like, because I don't think anybody should be erased in that way, right? But like we already know, like 2 billion people were on Alderaan, 800,000 Gormans, right? The Jedi, even if they were like quote unquote only 90% like killed off, having 100%, like having 100 of them left would still put their ranks in the thousands. Like there were billions upon billions upon billions of people that died, and we still don't know even in the narrative itself, like in the Star Wars universe, they don't know how many people were wiped out by the Empire. And so, you know, with all of that and all of the archives that were destroyed on planets like Jeddah or Alderaan or Gorman, whose core was destabilized by the gouge mining, right? All of these other planets, their histories have effectively been wiped out, which removes so much of the context that we would need to build all of that, you know, because
Super chat. Thank you.
Super chat. Wow. Great.
Hey. I'm going
Thank you
off
so
about
much for your
historical
support.
context, right?
There we go.
And I still wonder, like, it was a big moment in Andor season 2 and episode 10 when the Lena So medical center was still named the Lena So Medical Center, and it was like, but why? Why was? And it's like I love that little High Republic nod, but why wasn't the name changed when the Empire took over? When they were renaming, we see planets being renamed in the Mask of Fear. That is something Mon documents. We see street names, building names, you know, cities all renamed after people that Palpatine was trying to destroy the legacies and histories of. And, you know, it's very much like, while a lot of, like, we are still recovering from the knowledge lost in the Nazi book burnings, especially when we look at like queer theory and queer history. Like I can't remember the name of it. I think it was an institute that basically had all of this like research about transgender individuals, and it was destroyed by the Nazi book burnings. We're still recovering from that, right? And it's very much fueling the propaganda that a lot of people have spewed about, like, oh, being transgender is so new. Like, no, trans people haven't always existed. And that is very much actively still participating in the erasure and removal of that history. They're allowing it to stand, right? Yeah. By simply not listening to like these accounts of what was happening there. And it's another form of genocide in and of itself, because it's like, okay, this already happened. They destroyed all of these texts. They killed all of the people. And now that you can see like all of this evidence and you have all of this information and you know what happened, you still have people denying that it ever did, which is strange, you know. And
I don't think it's that strange. I think it makes perfect sense.
It's tragic, is what it is.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I mean, that. Well, again, that's my point of, Beaumont Kin's point is people we really easily forget. And maybe Joel, to the thing you keep saying about how this has happened before. Yeah, we forgot how.
We got Bush.
Well, yeah, with Bush. I mean, that's the thing in the Tea Party, but also, you know, the 20s and 30s, we forgot, and we've kind of been unable to orient ourselves into saying, okay, we're the Empire, we're the bad guys, right? In the sense of, well, you know, again, I mean, and Joel, you might still disagree with this, but my point being, we've forgotten how the Holocaust happened. We've forgotten how the rise of the Nazi regime happened.
Well, here's a better example.
Well, let me finish my point, though. Hold on. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point, and then you'll go for it. Right. We forget that it's people who were, if you were like them, they were friendly, they're honest, hardworking folks with good families down the street, and they were just afraid of the big bad wolf coming to take them away, that they became the big bad wolf and went and took people away, right? That's the thing. And so we're now in another, I would say, again, another iteration of that. Again, I agree it's cyclical, but it's starting to look like that a little more. And right, we need to have books like, I mean, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. We need to have books like, well, people in, you know, at the end of the First Order conflict, needed books like The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire to say, okay, this is how we prevent this. This is how we learn. Because that's the thing. It's not just about, well, this is maybe to the point about Wikipediaification or whatever. The Wikipedification of history is what we're getting at. You're right. There is no neutral history. It's always a perspective. It's always for a reason. And the reason, hopefully, is so we can learn and grow as societies, maybe as a species. That might be too grand. That we are going to forget, but it's so we can do our best in the present, right? That's all we can do. And so we can say, no, we're not going to go down this route because this is starting to look familiar. Let's pull back. Let's actually have greater support for democratic rights. Let's actually notice, oh, this is targeting certain ethnic groups and certain folks who are citizens. And then, as we saw this weekend, even, well, I mean, she's queer, but Renee Good is a white woman. You know, when that, okay, finally, I think finally people really rising up and saying never again is now. And that's what is never again is now. We need books like that. We need to have this recollection of memory and cleansing, preservation of memory, because memory, and the thing, we remember our past is a way of remembering ourselves, where we come from. So Joel, you know, to your point, it'd be good to have built in more backstory, more thing. But I mean, that's another wonderful thing why in universe we need historians of the High Republic like my Tucker I just mentioned, right? To say, okay, this is what the Jedi offered to the galaxy at that time, and this is how they lost it. That would be put manifesting that out there. That would be my guy's dissertation. What the Jedi and their belief in the Force offered to the galaxy. But yeah, say let's remember and let's not forget.
All right, well, actually, this gets into the perfect point about part 2, the academic fascism of it all. Because here's my hot take. I'm kind of sick of the word. I think people use that word because it's easy, because it's pop culture, and because World War II was kind of the most blackest and whitest war that we as Americans can probably, and Westerners can probably comprehend themselves as seeing themselves as the good guy.
And by black is what you mean, like morally stark, clear.
Yes, even though it wasn't in real life.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the Holocaust, and then never again. Talk to any Armenian 25 years ago, the Armenian genocide in Turkey. We said that was never going to happen again. Well, 25 years later, that's only a quarter of a century.
Yeah.
So that was in the 20th century still, man. And even before then, there was some stuff that the German empire of the Kaiser were doing in one of their territories in Tanzania or something. And anyway, because like here's, so I have this book, Paul Gottfried's Career of a Fashion Career of Concept. I'm trying to get a lot of fascist theory books by people like, what is fascism? Because in a lot of the real world, especially on social media, fascism just become just authoritarian or bad. And there's a lot of bad things that people have done that are genocidal, they're just imperial, they're bad. Like, quite frankly, if you want to have like the most vaguest view of fascism, then the British Empire is fascist, then Canada's fascist, then America is fascist from day one. Everything's fascist. And there are people who call Stalin and Lenin fascist, and like that makes me mad as sort of a Soviet defensist. And even though I'm sure certain fascists are like, well, we don't want those guys. We're trying to kill them too. We're trying to kill them too. Especially with someone who's a little bit pro. China's fascist. Everything like probably not makes the Chinese mad. Now, because these are ideologies, and ideologies have certain characteristics. Yes, they can build off each other. Yes, they can. There's things that everyone takes from each other. Left, right, center, whatever. But these are different things. It's like calling everybody who wants, free healthcare a communist.
Right.
Trust me. Actual communists don't. I think that's like the most milquetoast social democrat thing ever. Trust me. Or when we call leftists and liberals the same thing. You know, it's like there's a reason why the part in Canada, your part, leftist and liberal parties are different. Where we're all smushed together, unfortunately. So you know, it's one of those things where it's like it's like this book kind of takes the argument that like fascism only really exists between 1922 and 1945, and everything else is like right wing authoritarianism can still be bad, can still be brutal, can still be dark. But that but it's like that's just this book. The other books kind of are a little bit more amorphous too. But it's like here are the things that make fascism what it is. And I do think this book has like a good perspective on it for the most part. Maybe not as on like maybe a Marxist theory side as I would like it or something like that. It's more it's my thing. But I think it does a good job showing the empire is like this is something that I know kind of trips people up a little bit, but this is kind of like my view of the term, quote unquote, not conservative. Because I do think conservative and fascism are actually two separate things in their tradition. For one thing, fascism was always seen as a more modernizing force. And by modernizing, I just mean industrial. I mean like, like where the conservative elites were like in like say Spain and the Estado Novo were like, like, hey, we want the landlords and the land. Oop, I hear myself in the background.
It's okay.
Sorry. They want the landlords and the agrarian society where it's like, the no Germans and the Italians were like, screw the landlords, let's pave over that baby with a good old highway. And like, the Germans were like, hey, we love that technology. We're basically going to make the modern movie industry. They love that stuff. So there's a big difference there. I do think it kind of shows the empire. And again, this trips people up to some extent as a revolutionary force. Because I don't think revolutions are inherently left or right. You can't have bad revolutions. And by revolutions, I just simply mean you had the old elite. I guess you can put Mon in, Bale, kind of the old aristocracies of it all, and Palpatine's bringing a new elite. He is not from the core. He acts like he's from the core, but he's not. He's from Naboo. Tarkin's not from the core. He's from Ariadu. They're kind of like lower aristocrats compared to like the true nobles and barons. Like they're like the three houses down that nobody cares about. But like, all of a sudden, like, oh shoot, you're now powerful. Like Napoleon when he took over, where he's from the Bonapartes are like from an unnoble family, and then they got right to the top.
Of course, right?
Corsicans, yeah, they're pretty much Italians. Pretty much. I don't know if they're like even counted as French by some people, right? So you kind of have that kind of like the changing of the elite from like true core worlds to like these kind of peripheral core worlds. They're still human. Obviously, you got the human centrism thing. That's a big deal, of course. That's always been there with Comp Nor and stuff like that. Which, again, the actual movies kind of go in and out about. And, I think it tries to do a good enough job. It's trying to make it as, quote-unquote, technical fascism. I call it technical fascism, where it's like, here are, like, what people think of the ideological steps of, like, these corporatist right-wing states. Doesn't go much into economics as much as I would think be cool, where it's like you have like the single union or class collaborationism between workers and corporations, which was a big pioneering thing in actual Italian fascist Italy. That was a big deal. But you got the racial stuff there, although even then it's like there's plenty of racist too. Like the British Empire was very much racist, and I know, right? But like here, this is my hot take. You can be liberal and racist. It's like you can still believe in parliamentary and democracy, and still believe in that colored people aren't smart. That doesn't. It's like it's a fair thing. Hang on. But I think it does a good job trying to incorporate what we think is fascistic beyond where Lucas I think was more again vibes names like stormtroopers. Or World War II vets were still alive, so they probably knew what a stormtrooper was in the real world context. That kind of the bucket helmet of Vader. And I think the book does a good enough-ish job of trying to do that. Again, as someone who kind of has been reading a lot more, I think maybe a little bit more of like this and that. But that's just the academic in me, of course. Like I'm not gonna necessarily, be like, technically maybe this isn't fascist because of the lack of the thingies and the this and that. And it's like, we can say that after we're being shot at. We can say that till afterwards, and then in 30 years we can maybe make that discussion. So I never try to be that kind of person in the moment.
Sure.
But if you're gonna ask me like my academic opinions about things, then I'll be a little bit, But in the moment, I'm like, I'm not gonna like start being that kind of guy. But I just want to talk about it in the essence of the book. Matthew, I'll toss it to you. My ramblings on that one.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll admit, once you bring up what the technical or academic definition of fascism is, it's hard to pin down, because right-wing authoritarianism, it's true, it can be broader, but even it's true to your point, but the revolutionary really wanting to bring this massive wave of change that Palpatine was trying to say, that the Republic has failed you from keeping you safe, right? Of course, he engineered the very crisis called the Clone Wars to prove that. But in a way, you could see the argument that he proved it, that when all these stormtroopers or not stormtroopers, battle droids are coming at you, coming to your town, and the Republic just isn't there, the Jedi aren't there, we need more firepower. We're afraid. And so what this book really does well also is the way it tightens its grip is by exploiting fear, and by saying, like I said, that, well, first of all, I love that the first chapter I read was, it was on the Galactic Senate, I think, but I also read the Clone Wars chapter when I first got this book, and how it toughened up. No, not toughened up. What's the tenderized? It was a meat tenderizer for the galaxy. That they were just tired of war, tired of the uncertainty of the future, of conflict, and here comes the Empire with, you said technical fascism, also technocratic fascism is maybe another way of, or technocracy. And what I've talked about a few times here in a theology time, of how the Empire was able to replace faith in the Force with faith in itself, and embodied by these massive balls of duonium that could shoot a super laser at you, and destroy your planet. So that's the paradox, is capitalizing on fear by saying we're going to bring peace and security and order to the galaxy, while also ruling through fear, saying, but if you don't fall in line, we're going to be the source of that conflict. We're going to be the source of that, what you'll experience as disorder, even if they'll say, oh, you're just bringing it upon yourself, through the power of this kyber crystal weapon platform. So the thing, interestingly, so also a theology time, my priest on Sunday, she actually brought this up because she did a whole thing on Star Wars, and
your influence,
kind of a little bit. In her sermon, which is all trusting in technology and having faith in technology. So, Joel, you mentioned, let's forget the agrarian. Let's pave paradise, pull up these parking lots, build these factories. What is fascinating both in Star Wars and I want to know, like, the economics of which corporations really benefited from which in Nazi Germany, which corporations really benefited from it. We know in Star Wars, Sinar and Kuat, and then
I know the Ford did. Good old American companies did.
Yeah, who really benefited from it. Interestingly, now to go with contemporary parallel, I was just reading how maybe ExxonMobil won't profit from this attack on Venezuela because they're raising ExxonMobil. Just want to pause here. I just realized how wild this is. ExxonMobil is telling Trump, "Hold on."
Well, if you know anything about Venezuelan oil, it does make sense.
Yeah, no, like I was reading that they're right, but ExxonMobil is telling Trump is making sense in the face of Trump. Anyway, that's where we're at that part of the timeline. But yeah, like
or even like the empire's stance on religion and actual, like, yes, in the real world, reason why the Catholics have the Vatican City because they made the deal with Mussolini and stuff like that. But
the Lateran Treaty,
the Nazis and the fascists, like, here's the thing: they're willing to make deals with those conservative elements of the elite, but they also hate their guts and will eventually, if they stay in power for a long time, they will try to liquidate them or get rid of them. Like, Mussolini made the deal with the king to be appointed prime minister. That's how he became prime minister, more or less. He said, like, oh, I am, I'm gonna have march on Rome. The king could have crushed him, honestly, but the king was like, well, I don't like the priest and I don't like the communists, so this guy. And like Mussolini, like, okay, but Mussolini's always like, well, one day I might get rid of you, Mr. King. I will even make some constitutional amendments to appoint your successor or appoint myself. Ironically, with the king who eventually got rid of Mussolini in 1943. It's even true of the Nazis. Like one of the kind of the thing, the German army is obviously, just as much as responsible for all the atrocities as much as the Waffen SS and that stuff. But Hitler hated all the old school Prussian aristocratic generals, and weirdly enough, it was they who kind of almost got him more than even leftist opposition and stuff like that in terms of assassination attempts. Like everyone's like Operation Valkyrie, like, oh, these democratic Germans who wanted to free Germany from this tyranny. They're like, no, they were all just a bunch of aristocrats who probably liked the Kaiser in the old days. They just thought Hitler was nuts and just wanted a more of a aristocratic, semi-authoritarian government that wasn't just completely nutters in their eyes. So it'd be like if just we like the hardcore of the Empire, where we just think the Sith stuff is weird. Tried to overthrow Palpatine, almost got him. Because sometimes, unfortunately, this is something a lot of people got to realize is a lot of the time, and we'll get into this where I get really cynical later. It's not right versus left for a power struggle. Sometimes it's just, pick which version of right wing you want. You want, if you want to be really cynical for America, do you want the Democrat version of right wing or do you want the Trump version of right wing? That's your pick your poison. That's
it's true in Canada too. It's true in Canada.
Yeah. So
the Liberal Party is a conservative party. Yes. No, sorry. The word conservatism. The Conservative Party is a neoliberal party, and so is the Liberal Party.
Someone once said this, and I kind of agree if you think about it. The Democrats are a conservative party because they still want the institutions and all that. Where Trump is burn it all down. I don't give I don't care. I'm Trump. So or even look at a lot of other countries like Syria or Iran. Syria, Assad, bad guy. Do not like him. Who won out? It was an old Al Qaeda affiliate group that won and now controls Syria. That's majority Sunni. So, and we can get into when we get to the real worldisms of it all and stuff like that. But as I ramble, I think I'm rambling more than you at this point, Ash. Let's see. I can win the ramble war. What do you think of how the book kind of tries to make as real as possible that the Empire is fascist, not in terms of moralistic, fascism is bad, but also here's the actual technicalities of how this all works.
Yeah. So the problem with our real world today is that fascism is very much communism in that it is a buzzword, and too many people do not actually understand the theories and the ideologies that go into it.
Yes,
there are things that are fascist that certain governments do, but that is not the be and all end all of this administration or this government is inherently fascist, right? There's a lot more that goes into it, right? And people are willing to overlook that because they want to be right, but they also want validation when they're like, this is just like this historical event that they also don't remember because they haven't thought about it since high school. So it's very much the way that we're forgetting our own history, right? I consistently am a person who reads real world historical texts, and I reread and I reread and I recontextualize and I look at things and I'm like these things take time. Do all governments have the ability to become fascist governments and to turn the countries that they or the people that they serve and the areas that they serve into fascist regimes? Yes, 100%, right? But we're not quite there yet in the vast majority of cases, right? But because, turning around and being like, oh, this is so fascist, it's like, yeah, sure, that's a sign of fascism. But also, it was raining here the other day. Rain is not a sign of winter, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that every single action that could be done in a fascist way is fascist, right? For example, this is a real world, fairly recent example. In Canada, during COVID, when COVID broke out, the government was asking us to remain in our provinces to reduce the spread until, we had things like vaccines, ways to more easily prevent it, etc., etc. Yes, stopping your citizens from leaving, the place where they live, reducing their mobility, reducing their access to in a country where we have the right to mobility, we can travel wherever the hell we want in Canada. That could be considered fascist. There was a reason for that. And it was a good reason, right? It was, hey, we want to stop this. We don't want more people to get sick. We don't want you to get sick. So please help us as much as possible reduce the spread of this. And people are still big mad about it, even though the whole lockdowns, there were no real lockdowns. I could still go out on a walk. I still had to work. And I worked in a coffee shop, which I'm sorry, is not that essential. I was not working in a hospital. I wasn't a firefighter. I was not something like that. I worked for minimum wage in a freaking Starbucks coffee shop in a mall that opened after a month and a half of being shut down. That's not what a lockdown looks like, right? And I think people were I think people sometimes will exaggerate the things that they see because they lack the context for it. Now, yes, having a police state is something that is fascist, but there can be very good reasons to have a stronger police presence in a particular location at a time. Natural disaster. Non-natural disaster, right? I was 4 years old when 9/11 happened. I'm pretty sure that there was an increased police presence in New York when that happened. No one is turning around and calling it. Well, no one was turning around and calling New York a police state. I'm pretty sure maybe they were, right? They've become buzzwords. And,
absolutely.
And that's how people are gaining follows and likes and all of these things, especially on social media, because they don't need to be honest. They don't need to share their sources, right? So why not?
I I don't know if I'm going to challenge you. I would just go a little further. I just wouldn't even call it fascist. I just call it authoritarian. We have a word. It's called authoritarian. Whether what America has had lots of authoritarian presidents outside of Trump. Honestly, I think even scarier. Again, Bush, I think, was authoritarian. I think he was even more competent about it. He created the NSA and the Department of Homeland Security and ICE.
Yes.
Ever read Woodrow Wilson? That guy during World War I, he literally arrested socialists and Eugene Debs for opposing the war with not trial. He used like a War Powers Act or something. He was really going at it. He cracked he's probably what Trump would dream of being which again, more effective too. So we've had
Operation Paperclip.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
where you guys were. This is no shade to you, but like where your government was literally hiring Nazis who then caused the Red Scare in the 50s.
I mean, we probably were going to do it anyway. Wait a minute. Are there Canadian Nazis in there too? I think.
Yeah, probably.
Sure. Look. That's just authoritarianism. Yeah. At some point, I think. My hot take is authoritarianism isn't divorced from an ideology. Like you can have left-wing authoritarians, you can have right-wing authoritarians, you can have centrist authoritarians, you can have even liberal authoritarians. Quite frankly, people called Napoleon III a liberal authoritarian because what ideology was like back then in bourgeois society. You gotta kind of know your context of Europe. And again, I think you are absolutely right. It's also why I think stuff like this is cool and but also kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
And again, because one of the reasons why this book says fascism has only existed from 1922 to 45. Again, we can debate that, but one of the big contexts of why fascism exists is World War I. And without World War I, we probably would never have any of these modern day fascist regimes because maybe the European monarchies would have stayed around. I don't know. We can only what if, but that's a big deal. We try with the Clone Wars to some extent to make it that I don't know how successful, because again, the point of a lot of the fascist leaders were all World War I vets who went in the trenches and they went crazy. And there were a lot of staunch leftists who went in the trenches and they went crazy. Kind of broke both ways, unfortunately.
Whereas the trenches made people crazy. Trench warfare was freaking nuts.
I do think to some extent, maybe the closest we get to that is Anakin, who.
Yeah.
I sadly, I don't think the Clone Wars show actually does that great a job with, unfortunately. This is my hot take. I think the comics do a little bit better of kind of showing Anakin kind of getting a little angsty during the war, and that's where kind of his already predetermined authoritarian mindset kind of gets
Clone Wars
worse.
touches on it a little bit.
A little bit. I would go a little darker, but
I mean, as you just read Bad Batch Sanctuary, that's the closest example I think we've gotten of the effect of the war on these clones, right?
Yeah.
That's actually kind of why I wish they didn't use clones. I just kind of wish the galaxy had a military and they had a horrible war that made everyone crazy. I kind of wish we saw more recruitment.
I mean, that's kind of what Beaumont Kin, Kempshall saying. Again, the meat grinder.
That's true. Yeah. Although, again, you can't do it 1-to-1 because, in Germany, the Germans lost, and that's a big reason why Hitler turned to power, because he was like, "Hey, we really got screwed over," and they did. The Treaty of Versailles really screwed.
The Treaty of Versailles was sucky. The Treaty of Versailles is literally one of the causes of World War II. If you actually if you look at it, that thing was insane, and it's just like of course, a population whose money is so worthless that there are pictures of them freaking burning it. Of course, they're going to be angry and willing to enlist to go and kill you. No justification for the horrors of World War II. But you can't do that to people and expect them to be like, of course we're okay with it.
Right.
Italy's a little weirder because they were technically on the Allies' side, but they felt they got screwed over after the war ended too. But just for different reasons. So it's like they won, but they felt like they lost.
I mean, there's still the parallel. I mean, I think my sense with Italy might be similar, definitely with Germany. You mentioned the anti-aristocratic impulse of the Nazi Party, but that's the thing, is that there is sort of a liberalism in Nazism in the sense of let's have these middle class folks actually have the power. It's the power to do what, right? And so, well, the resentment against the aristocracy, the resentment against, and aristocracy is also connected with church, right? We got to remember that,
especially in Europe,
specifically in Europe, right? Church and state, but also in Latin America and other parts. But so, I mean, that's kind of where that gets interesting. Is you have popes speaking out against the Nazi regime, and they did. I know reputations of the contrary notwithstanding, they did. And it is this sort of weird, okay, we have our allegiances to the traditional arrangement with monarchs and bishops, but also there is a genuine, oh no, our priests are getting, or our priests at our churches are getting burned down and are getting arrested. There's that, and the genuine humanitarian concern there.
I mean, I'll just add one more thing as well. It's like, that's another thing about fascism that, again, Star Wars can't really get into because we don't have it. There's no socialist movement or Soviet Union for like everyone to freak out about, which is another kind of big reason why it's like, oh no, the communists, where it's like, sadly the galaxy doesn't really have communism or Soviet Union. So
and also like, a big reason why it went downhill for Hitler was the fact that the war was on two fronts.
But
the Empire was really just fighting, primarily rebels. Yes, there were uprisings on various planets, but those could be squashed with a battalion of troopers. Like, the Tarkin Doctrine had effect there, right? They were very, like, the people were scared of Force more than they were, like, more than, actually, like, seeing a troop. Like, the thought of a trooper marching down their street was terrifying enough for them to be like, actually, maybe we're all good, right?
Yeah.
And, again, another point with the, like, not everything is exactly fascist. Hitler was also inspired by the American genocide of the indigenous people. Like,
and the British
genocide bad inherently, and again,
genocide not relegated to fascism. Anyone could do it.
It is not. Exactly. Right. And also, this isn't to minimize it. There is no unique genocide in history. Genocides over the last century have become more and more documented. And current ongoing genocides are very documented. We can watch them playing out on our smartphones as we're sat on the couch eating Cheetos, watching Star Wars, right? That's why that's why we're so able to think about it now. And it's just like, yes, the horrors of any genocide are terrible. The last residential school in Canada closed the year before I was born. I still sometimes get carded at the liquor store. That's how young I am. Bonkers. Right? That's not a brag, Matthew.
I know. Well, like, hey, you thought I was younger than I was, so there we go.
That's true. That's true. I consistently forget how old you are.
I mean, this is the thing I always like to point out.
It's not that long ago that we were still actively participating and perpetrating a cultural genocide of the Indigenous people of our country. Like, Canada's not innocent of that either, right?
Oh yeah,
and I love the country I come from. I want it to be better, which is why it hurts me when primarily conservative politicians and people who are more right-wing aligned are just like, We don't need to apologize for our past.
Yeah.
We can be proud to be Canadian. I'm like, I am proud of being Canadian. And part of that means that I want to be better tomorrow than I was today. And today I want to be better than I was yesterday. That's how we move our country forward. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And, this is sort of the thing about Star Wars and fiction. And I'm going to save this for last, but we can kind of rearrange certain things a little bit. Look, Star Wars at the end, Star Wars is still very blunt, right?
Yeah.
The Emperor is a crinkly old man with yellow eyes. He's shooting lightning out of your hands. He's got the evil, he's got these things called Star Destroyers, and whatnot.
Space opera.
A Death Star?
Death Star, right? And look, clearly Trump is proving you can have some of the creepiest people in power today. Not saying that for sure. But you're not gonna, but most of the time in the real, and obviously got Mussolini and Hitler, and they were kind of big weirdos for their time. But you're talking about Canada, that wasn't happening under the reign of Emperor Trudeau. Like boot to the dark side. The weird Canadian flag destroyers, Star Destroyers. Canada's still kind of a typical parliamentarian constitutional monarchy government where it's like, okay, you vote out the Liberal Party, you get the Conservative, you get out maybe the NDP wins some seats, I don't know. It's like, it's pretty just, you look at it, it's like, it's just typical boring parliamentary democracy, liberal republic, whatever you want to call it, constitutional parliamentary system, there you go. It's not the like the British Empire for hundreds of years was just mostly a parliamentary constitutional monarchy, right? It was the Empress Victoria. Although she was technically Empress Victoria in India.
Yes, she was. But she wasn't
Empress
of India.
But she wasn't shooting lightning out of her hand, trying to use the dark side to bring back Albert.
Trying to picture that now.
Unless you watch Black Butler.
See, I think that would be awesome if Victoria did.
That's insane. It's giving Pride and Prejudice and zombies, and not in a good way. Oh my god! I'm
especially
instead of wait. What would be the? Then you must die. Instead of that, it's I am not abused. I could see her doing that. Actually.
Especially
after Albert dies.
Yeah.
There's an anime where Victoria went nuts and tried to use dark forces to bring him back.
You know what? Wouldn't we all?
Hey, Victoria and Albert are like the OTP of 19th century Europe, man.
It's true.
They're they're the OTP.
They were like
what a great tangent, guys. What a great tangent.
We're doing great, by the way.
I'm so sorry. But it's just something I always bring up as well when it comes to not making Star Wars. You can use Star Wars, but you shouldn't use it one-to-one all the time. Like, Palpatine isn't Hitler in the exact same way. He wasn't a corporal in the Republic Army who lost the Clone Wars and then got all crazy about it and he's an amalgamation of everything, going back to Caesar and Rome. And this might be a good time, maybe, Massey, to bring up some Rome stuff.
So I think what we're to
that point. Sign up to listen to men talk about the Roman Empire.
It's gonna get even worse, Ash. It's about to get even worse before it gets better. It's better.
I love you guys. Let me get there.
Let me bring this up.
Joking.
So you bring up the point of, we talked about this. This isn't a one-to-one to the rise and fall of the Third Reich.
Yeah.
There's no one-to-one to rise and fall of anything. Open your Bibles up, folks, to Revelation chapter 18.
Okay, I'll open to chapter 18. I don't know. That's chapter 13. That's called Atrocities and Genocides.
Close enough.
Close enough.
No,
okay.
Revelation chapter 18.
Do you wanna hear about Gorman? No, okay.
So I'm literally doing. It's on my mind because I'm literally doing Bible study on this tomorrow night. So that's why this is on my mind. So first of all, the Babylon in Revelation is about Rome. It's the Roman Empire. And first of all, trying to see where would be good. So chapter 17 is all about how, and in previous chapters all, but how the Empire comes to power and becomes this hegemonic system throughout the known world at the time, right? Yeah, there were other groups out there, but by and large, it was the Roman Empire. The Mediterranean was the Roman lake. And this book is especially about how violent and evil and terrible it is. And that's why I call it the Whore of Babylon. It's not really talking about sex work. It's talking about the seductive allure of power. And yet, here's 18 verse 2. Fallen is Babylon the Great. It has become a dwelling place of demons, haunt of every foul spirit, haunt of every foul bird, etc. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth grown rich from the power of her luxury. So basically, the more you tighten your grip, the more star systems slip through your fingers. What is really striking is, the author of Revelation, George Lucas, what they're really getting at is this deeply human thirst for control, and how that gets manifest in these political systems, in these social systems, but more importantly, in the ways in which we imagine how the world ought to be. And we imagine the way the world ought to be is I have to control my resources. I have to control my security in order to protect me and mine. And that is, again, this replacement of replacing faith in the goodness of others, in the goodness of ourselves, the possibility, the capacity for us all to come together and depend on each other and be interdependent. And we're talking about Revelation here, so there's this lamb character who sacrifices himself, is this god who would die. The Force, who that moves and sustains all life and resists consolidation, actually expands outward. We have someone like Sabine, who isn't midi-chlorian rich, but she's able to connect with the Force by connecting with Ezra and connecting with her surroundings, and there's that great example. And so it's fascinating what these two very imaginative stories 2,000 years apart, tapping into this need also for us to describe these dynamics in such general terms, in fantastical terms. Like, obviously, I don't believe there's this literal woman, this literal sex worker who's gonna come and do her thing. Also, sex work is more complicated and more morally complicated now. Maybe it always was, but let's say that's a bit of a tangent. My point being, it's stunning how universal both the need to articulate the rise of, we can say authoritarianism, we can say tyranny, the rise of those impulses, and the need to resist them. Right. Later on, to come out of her, all you people, come out and say no, do not give in to what the Empire is selling you. Don't buy what the Empire is selling you. Resist, rebel, and so the need to also, in this mytho-poetic way, for George Lucas and the author of Revelation, to say there is another possibility, there is another way. May the force of others be with you, and also with you. So there, that's my theology time.
Now, can I dunk some cold, cynical, real world ism on it? I'm kind of kidding.
No,
but I do want to kind of. Okay.
I'm kidding. Do what you want to say.
Because I've been thinking about this. I'm trying to find a place to say this kind of my hot take, which kind of goes into another hot take you had for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna recalibrate, because I think, in a weird way, I'm not gonna say this. I don't think Leia is wrong, but I do think that Star Wars is very fantastical. That quite frankly, history has kind of showed. Actually, no. The harder you grip your tighten your grip, the more likely you are to stay in power because all the worst ones, dictators, tend to normally tighten their grip and just die in office. Or if they're so willing to, if their armies are willing just to mow everybody down. You know, you look at, I mean, obviously, like the reason why Syria, or if they do fall, the aftermath is not going to be pretty. Like, I kind of think, and this is where Star Wars kind of gets a little fantastical. I think the galaxy, quite frankly, even with what the stuff the book goes into, I think the galaxy got off way easy after the fall of the Empire, transition to New Republic, than say Syria right now after the fall of Assad, who just, he mowed everybody down, like, and the Civil War broke out, and just, my God, quite frankly, the Galactic Civil War, in my opinion, is probably not as bloody as like the actual Civil War in, say, like Syria, right? What happened, or it's still ongoing, quite frankly. And what happened? Now we have former Al Qaeda people who decide, we'll be neoliberal and we'll wear suits, but we're still going to kill all the minorities because we don't like them. We're Sunni and we're the majority, and we don't like the secularism that the Bassists tried to push on us for 50 years. Now we're in charge, and we're gonna be nice with the West. Are we gonna be democratic and liberal? No, I mean, I'm to all our LGBTQ Syrian friends out there, the current government probably also thinks you're the devil, and probably not gonna be pretty. And a lot of it because the government just mowed everybody down. All the alternatives were killed off. And you got kind of, this is what you're left with, protest in Iran, right now. The government looks like they're cracking down hard. I don't know if people are acting as if the regime will collapse tomorrow or stay in power. I think it's going to be more like a long, drawn out recalibration of the regime. That might make a deal with the West eventually, or who knows, but it's not going to be pretty. I can tell you that much. I'm trying to think, I kind of think in Russia, Putin, if he's going to go down, he'll either die in office or someone in the elite will turn on him. But as long as he's got the military to back him up, he's still good as gold. And also I've talked about, maybe he's not as unpopular as I think a lot of us in the West want to. And don't get me wrong, I think things are not going well here with this, but there's still kind of all our alternatives here in like the West. We still got the Democratic Party. I know some doomers out there saying we're not going to hold elections right now, and blah blah blah. Which always kind of goes. I always go back and forth on like, but people are still running. Mamdani's the mayor of New York. So clearly, they could even rig a city election. How can they rig a whole midterm? I mean, they could try. I think there's gonna be some shenanigans, some weird stuff.
Sure.
But I do think ultimately, my hope, who knows, but the military will go that far. Because I'm kind of my cynical side of me is like, regular people actually don't make big change. It's actually when the military just decides, okay, let's just switch sides. And in Star Wars, you kind of had that with all the defections of the big military people like Draven Dodonna, who kind of make up the current Rebel Alliance. Because look, in a more cynical Star Wars world, because I'm going to say Star Wars is actually way more optimistic than I think we give it credit for. The Mon Mothmas of the world don't win and take over the government. It's normally the Saw Gerreras or people who are worse. So the kind of the, I don't want to call it the liberal alternative because, again, we're kind of putting ideologies that don't really exist in Star Wars into frame. But, again, it's normally not the moderates who take over. It's normally the extremists when the government just decides to crack down. And also the Empire consolidating all of its important people into two big battle stations and blowing up. That normally doesn't happen in the real world. And civil wars are way more bloody because there's zero sum and no one has anywhere to go. So that's kind of my counter to Leia saying the more you tighten your grip, the more star systems slip through your fingers. It happens, but it kind of just leaves you in ruins instead of semi-ruins.
So here's my sort of rebuttal. Isn't really, because it's kind of sidestepping your arguments a bit, but Star Wars isn't like what we're getting at here. Star Wars is not,
I think I would agree,
a book of history. It's not trying to be, Star Trek is sort of trying to be real history, but it's super optimistic. Star Wars is a story of myth and of hope. And
absolutely.
And it is an American product. It's a British American story, right? It comes from
it's a Western product.
It's a Western product. Comes from the context where there are these alternatives you could point to. What I found fascinating though is, the author of Revelation, he's there, he's being tortured, he's on this island. It's Rome. There are no alternatives to point to. It's just Rome.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
It's a story of saying, okay, but actually there is always an alternative, even if you can't point to it. It's also it's in part, frankly, it's time. Right. That even if the worst calamity happens, the great authoritarian tyranny rises to power, it won't stay there. There will something to outlast it. We have a say in what outlasts it. And so the fact that we have a say, the fact that, again, on Sunday, folks took to the streets is a massive act of hope that whatever maybe they don't fully know what the outcome will be, but that what they do matters. Sends a signal, sends a message. Maybe it sends a message to the army. Maybe it sends a message to ExxonMobil. I don't know. Maybe it sends a message to whoever. It sends a message. It sure sends a message to ICE. Just like, get the hell out of our cities.
It's actually working because they're having recruitment troubles, and some people are just leaving because they're like, I don't want people to leave.
And they didn't know necessarily that would happen, right? They didn't know it would be effective. But
so that hilarious video of the ICE agent slipping.
Oh yeah, that's great. So here's what I agree with Namek.
That's funny.
Here's what I agree with Namek is the small act, right? Try. Again, you don't know how these links in a chain will lead, and so again, going back to the book that we're actually talking about here, but it's a great jumping point to talk about Star Wars generally, and what's happened, the story generally. But again, Beaumont Kin, he's looking back and saying, "Oh, the Empire fell. How did it fall? Right? What happened? Enough people said no." Without risk their lives, risk their careers, even a certain Mon Mothma risking her life
constantly. So many death threats, bounties on her head. Chandrila was threatened. She was nearly assassinated on Chandrila.
Of all places,
nearly assassinated at home. Gunshot wounds.
And so,
I don't think she's
so this is maybe a bit of a segue. Because Mon Mothma is a very interesting character, right? You could, sorry, that's a bit of an understatement. Mon Mothma is one of the things that makes Mon Mothma so fascinating is that, here's the thing, you could have a very cynical take on what she does, right? She is the elite. She is more maybe leaning towards the let's restore the Republic. Not let's make something new. Let's go.
I want General Secretary of the Galactic Union, Mon Mothma of the. I don't know.
So I mean, kind of what I was talking about with the Pope, right? Pope Pius the 12th, saying, "Okay, I have this old order that is being dismantled, and I don't like that." Also, these innocent folks being murdered simply because they're Catholic, because their priest spoke out against the regime. Whatever. Again, it's the mix of the old authority and humanitarian. I mean, Ash, maybe I'll ask you this then. What do you make of that dual nature of Mon Mothma? That she is the elite, who then, I mean, Andor season 2 goes into this brilliantly in the wardrobe, right, in her hair, as an image of her taking on the common struggle. But what do you make of her as the elite, the one who is there for the institution of the democratic institution of the Senate, but also there for the people, for the rebellion?
Okay, I'm formulating an answer. But to start off with, this may be a hot take. I prefer her look in the last couple episodes of Andor than I as opposed to the way that we see her in Rogue One and Return of the Jedi. Because in Rogue One and Return of the Jedi, she looks still too much like the senator who fled the Senate because she no longer believed in the institution that she had given her life to. And so now, in order to, right the wrongs that she had unwittingly participated in, because Palpatine had those tricks where he would basically twist everything that they would do. That this started for her very early. It started with the Imperial Rebirth Act, which isn't touched on in this because it's from Mask of Fear, which came out like several months later. Right? But, she knows that, like, she's been trying for so long for that democratic, that political solution. And she's still trying, even after she leaves the Senate. And what finally breaks her is the Death Star and the Senate being dissolved, right? That when that is completely taken off the table by the other party, she is consistently trying to fix the galaxy. And, part of what I think makes her so special is because, senators like Bail Organa, and I love Bail Organa, or the other senators who showed up on Yavin and had that. But like, you see them, and sure, they might be like, oh, I don't always agree with the Emperor. I don't always agree with the Empire. That is all very well and good. But she was the one who finally, after watching what happened on Gorman, which was an incredibly highly documented atrocity that the Empire participated in, right? You see them beginning to plan this in season 2, episode, I think it's 2, with the Malthine Divide. That is the start of all of this. That is where they begin to dehumanize. And I don't like using the word dehumanize when it comes to the Empire because there's already non-humans and depersonified. Exactly. Depersonified is a better term, right? Depersonified Gormans, right? And, she, in season 1, we see her being like, hey, I don't want these people, I don't want to be hosting these people because of the things that they have done. She is trying to impose sanctions on the people that she is working with by being like, you are not welcome to sit at my table and break bread with me.
Right.
Because you are actively starving people. Right. But it's also too late for her husband to remove that invitation. Right. And of course, Perrin is thinking about it from maybe if you bring these things up to her, I've changed with Perrin. I think that he sees her concerns as valid, but also that she needs time for herself and she needs to find something akin to joy in her life again. Right. He's like, maybe tomorrow they'll think otherwise. Maybe you'll be able to change their minds tonight. And of course that doesn't.
Right.
And I feel sad.
Right.
It's like,
and so after fighting this fight for several years, specifically when it comes to the Gormans, she finally has had enough because the people that she's fighting for no longer exist. But she realizes that she still has trillions upon trillions of people in the galaxy that she can help with her words and now her actions, right? She is risking her life by saying the things that she says multiple times. We see that she is very much she's living on home one, right? She is living in a targeted rebel base. Like, she barely makes it off of Yavin 4 in Contingency Plan by Alexander Freed in the first Factpop book, right? You know, she is willing to be that person that she will sit down in the mess tent with the soldiers and let them see her. Whereas Palpatine and so many of the Imperial leaders would put themselves in a position where they're like, I'm not sitting with, you know, those corporals, those sergeants, those ensigns. I'm better than that. I give them orders.
Mon Mothma let someone throw up on her by accident.
She literally let Thane Kyrell vomit on her, and she was like, "It's fine." But in future, let's try to avoid that, my friend. Right? And she, I think in that scene in Lost Stars where her and Riken are talking to Thane, it's still very much like, you know, hey, I acknowledge that this is rough for you. Are you sure you can handle this job that we're giving you? Because once you take it, you can't step away from it. Right. And I respect that, because she's also taking into account, like, hey, some missions are not for everybody. Like, you know, and I think that, you know, the fact that the rebels feel seen by her, and they adore her. They adore her and Leia, and they want to follow them, right? Like, you see it in a lot of the minor characters, like in the Factpov books and other texts. Whenever they're like talking to Mon or Leia, they're like, I'm so nervous. I'm shaking. She's talking to me. I'm a nobody. Yeah. What's going on here? Right. And she's just like, she's treating them the way that she would treat any person in Rebel High Command, with respect, with autonomy, and as an individual, right? Which is a far cry from how the Empire treats people. And I think that is where the difference lies, is that she has the power and the privilege and all of these things to be that person that's like, I'm not sitting next to you while I'm eating. You're a freaking noob to the rebellion. You smell like you haven't showered in 3 weeks. Whereas instead she's like, we're fighting the same fight. Sit down next to me. Thane Kyrell, you can throw up on me this one and only time, right? Whereas in the Empire, that would have gotten him freaking airlocked. Like, it's how she strips all of that away the moment that robe drops in the Senate in episode 9. Yeah. When she's leaving with Cassian and she puts on his coat. That, to me, that change in her wardrobe, it is, you are one with us now. You are fully a rebel. Welcome to the rebellion. We will protect you the way that you seek to protect us. You know, so many other rebels also know what it's like to be beaten down by the Empire. They've shared that struggle with her, right? You have other leaders like Dodonna, Medine, Draven. You have even Rebel High Command leaders. You've got Wedge, you've got Thane, you've got Cassian Andor himself, Han Solo. All of these people that fought with the Empire also can understand coming home to yourself and fully becoming part of the rebellion, because they know what the alternative looks like. They have they made the active choice to walk away from that and say, we have to be better than we were yesterday. We have to speak for the people whose voices have been ripped from them. We have to carry on this fight for the people who can't fight anymore, right? Mon never knew Nemec's name, but she knows his work, until she never knew him, right? Yeah. She'll learn his name, she'll learn his words, those will follow her, right? She will make sure that by living his words, she is going off, she is bringing him with her into the future, right? She does that with every single rebel that falls, I think. is she carries that burden, and she, brings them with her to the New Republic, which I want to joke. It's called the New Republic / the Alliance to Restore the Republic, because we said calling it the High Republic 2 Electric Boogaloo was not going to work, and nobody would take us seriously. I was on her side.
Well, I mean, I think you actually break the great point of ultimately, I think if you're going into anything, even a book like this, looking for like a true historical text, Star Wars is still ultimately a morality play and about hope and whatnot.
Yeah.
So if you can't comprehend that, I think at some point maybe the critique comes from a bad place. Even though I am very like, look, I think sometimes it's a little more.
Would you like to confess something, Joel? Would you like to unburden yourself?
Oh no! I mean, no. I'm a proud, cynical person who sometimes doesn't know if he can apply Star Wars to the real world all the time. But but I definitely think that you're right. This is still ultimately a morality play. It's a very good one too. I kind of want to go into one more thing before we wrap up. It's this is the last point of the day. We've been all over the place. I knew we would, because this is.
Is it the Hays Code is it the Hays codification of the Jedi? No, can we talk about the phrase that I coined, which is Jedi coding, which is very weird. It's like queer coding, but it's implying that people are Jedi and they're not. Or should we get into that another day? Have you considered Have you considered that the Republic failed because of woke? That's a joke I wrote literally in the book.
I mean, look, I don't know about.
I was drunk. It looks like my drunk writing.
I mean, I don't know about you, Ash, but wasn't it weird when Palpatine started ranting about the spread of Jedi Bolshevism across the galaxy and that all stuff? Weird.
I mean, when Partagas was talking about how the ISB is a healthcare provider.
Yeah. But the last kind of point I want to talk about is just what I call the recontextualization of the saga. And I want to kind of point this to Matthew and kind of ask you some questions.
Sure.
About because again, I think Ash brought this up. I do think this book does a good job of showing it's not all just Palpatine. To some extent, I think it succeeds. There's certain areas where it's like, Rise of Skywalker kind of breaks that a little bit. Because again, Palpatine's still there.
Somehow.
I do, of course, it goes into like the fall of the Empire, just the complete collapse of the state. And if we had more time, I would love to gone into like the regime can collapse, but the state doesn't always collapse. The army kind of breaks from the regime, blah blah blah. A couple of and kind of like kind of goes into questions I asked, like, does it really say the rebels won the war, or did the Empire just collapse under its own weight? Kind of that. And of course, the two things I think I really love about how it recontextualizes Star Wars is Battle of Yavin and Battle of Hoth. Which we went over a little bit. I think we all have. Where with Yavin, what I like is it's not so much that they blew up the Death Star, which is where the victory lies. It's more the fact that they killed Tarkin and like a good chunk of the most competent people running the Empire, who were all in the battle station when that thing went kabooey.
And sunk how many credits?
Who else thought that was going to be Dedra's ending in Andor? Because that's what I thought.
Then we got more satisfying, I think.
Yeah.
And of course,
I did not see Dedra's actual ending coming.
I know. And then, of course, the Battle of Hoth, which, if you watch Empire Strikes Back, it looks like a big victory, but then the book actually goes into, actually, well, the rebels kind of, High Command escaped, and most of the rebels escaped, so it's like, well, did you really win anything, Vader? Or did you just waste a bunch of soldiers and tire them out all day in the snow? Good job, buddy. I also really loved, of course, another recontextualization, which I did not put in the notes, was how the whole Crimson Dawn saga also made the Empire just another purges and exhausted. And, of course, how I think it kind of fits the sequel trilogy nicely into the wider saga. So, Matthew, I'll ask you that. What were some of your favorite recontextualizations you got from this book? Could you start with the sequel trilogy? Because I always feel like we always talk about that.
I'll admit I can't. I'm struggling to remember details and specifics. But yeah, I mean recontextualization. Yeah, well, again, the whole theme that you're mentioning, right? Again, that's the thing I keep coming back to. Who's the one tightening their grip, right?
Right.
Who's the one doing, imploding themselves from within, or imploding themselves by themselves. From what I'm getting at is, the way. So, well, here's kind of bring the sequel trilogy and bring the Rise of Skywalker in. Palpatine, his defeat the second time. What is he doing? He's throwing all this force magic at Rey. Does Rey rush him and chop him down? No. She just deflects it right. She just deflects it right back at him, dissolving himself from within. That was kind of what I was bringing up with the biblical thing, and that these empires, that this Galactic Empire, the Soviet Union, you can make this argument too, even if we want to say it's morally more complicated or not. I don't know. It collapsed under its own weight. And the British Empire, here's a great example, right? Why? So here's the thing, Joel. We dunk on the US a lot in Canada. What happened, 1837, Alexander Mackenzie takes a bunch of drunk rabble-rousers for a stroll and knocks some buildings down or something. And all of a sudden they're like, the British are like, oh no, not again. This isn't worth it. Right. We're going to be overextending ourselves. Let's give these folks their own parliament. Fine. Basically saying they were afraid of another American Revolution. So even that collapsing under its own weight, saying it's just not worth it, is at least a more smoother way of doing it. The British were was maybe one of the smoothest imperial collapses. Just became the Commonwealth, as we mentioned. But yeah, that's the thing is recontextualizing. Yeah, especially the Battle of Yavin was really the spectacular one, because that's the hinge point. That's the turning point, right? How many how many resources, how many people, how much Duonium was sunk in that. You mentioned Tarkin, you mentioned all these folks. Someone like Thrawn was right about that. Tag was right about that. It isn't an effective strategy. Thank the Force that Palpatine was just so arrogant. He believed that he was invincible. That not only could he do this stupid thing once, he did this stupid thing again.
More of them.
Death Star 2. And then Snoke does it the third time, with Circular Base. So, which we kind of dunk on that with Force Awakens, but like, okay, they're just that unimaginative.
First Order was compensating for something.
They were. Oh, absolutely.
Hux was compensating specifically for something. By the way, so this book also does something again, which we talked a lot about in other things. Like I wish there was something that went into this, because this is like the most fascinating thing, and the only thing that does it is the Last Jedi novel. I still love the idea of like how older Imperial officers in the how older First Order officers in the First Order view the Empire compared to the youngins. I love this idea of like, when Palpatine comes back, like all the young First Order officers are like, why do we care about this old corpse? Who cares? Where it's like all the older officers are like, Palpatine's back, yay! The boss is back, baby. Let's just go.
As I served you in the First War.
Sticks. I don't know how to.
Or like all the young ones are like, but we want our own fashion.
Your guy, your steadfast soldier.
I know.
Ooh, okay, literally, let Adam frickin' write the Enric and Carenza novel, please. Please. I need her literally like following him around and being like, you can't keep I have to file a report every time you do something like this. Please. I'm 3 weeks behind. No, you cannot ask a junior officer to eat his socks. That's not, we can't keep doing this.
There's the lore.
It's literally, she wants to add a line in the reports to just, this is how high he was. And, and the most concerning ones are where he's not high on death sticks at all.
There we go. It's a job for Dolores Imperial HR.
Yes.
Corinne's First Order HR.
Yes. Also, I'll ask Matthew, because I know this was also in the book, if you remember anything. What do you think of how it handled a lot of the Mandoverse era stuff with like what we saw in like Mando season 3 and
Yeah. I mean, kind of how you're mentioning, I was mentioning outside the scope of this study, just because things weren't as pinned down there. Again, I'm trying to remember.
I thought they added quite a lot of interesting context of like how they had to kind of re-up the bureaucracy a lot because Galactic Depression hit. Oops, shoot, we gotta.
I think I read this too fast. See, this is why I read slower, guys. So I remember more things.
I know,
or read it 3 times, or read it 17, 20 times like Cash.
Like
I was able to read it in 1 day again.
Yeah, I like
only
moments
on
like
a
that.
Reread.
I mean, I just like it because it's like, ooh, policy. Which again, it's one of those things where it's like I gotta. Again, you gotta always remember Star Wars is a moral tale first. But it's like sometimes you kind of want to know what is Mon Mothma's policy. What were her healthcare policies?
Ooh.
What were her?
That's gonna be so much fun for me to think about. I think her policies were that she is super based, and no, wait, those are my opinions on her policies.
Ash, we have a Taylor Swift trivia contest to win on Thursday. You can't be filling your brain with other things.
Okay, look, I have been filling my brain with so much Taylor Swift. It's called balance. Everything is the Force wills it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this book does a good job about that and more. Ash, was there anything about this book that recontextualized how you saw anything differently, or it's like I kind of knew all this stuff already?
I feel like I knew most / all of it the first time I read it, but like it was the way that it really hammered home the point of what Nemec was saying about, they'll hide behind 40 atrocities rather than a single incident, because a lot of it is just so fast and back to back that like when you're watching Rebels and then you read a book and you read a comic series and you watch, the clones, it all feels more spread out than it is. And then you're like, oh yeah, the Empire was only around for like 20 something years. Like I've lasted longer than the Empire. Padme Amidala lasted longer than the Empire.
Mon Mothma lasted longer than the Empire.
Mon Mothma outlives everybody. Yeah. But like it was so fascinating because I was like, oh damn. Like I was thrown back to like when I was studying history and my class would put me in charge of like making sure that everybody knew all the timelines, and people would be like, this happened like a week after this, and I was like, oh yeah, things happen fast in wartime. And I had to remind myself of that because I was like, damn,
I know
that was a lot. That was a lot that was going on. Right. And yet the Empire was still like, I mean, we're at peace, even though they constantly had that we're still at war mentality. And unless you were in the core or maybe the colonies, maybe some areas of the mid-rim, the war never effectively ended for you. Like it was like, oh, Clone War is over, and suddenly constant subjugation and tyrannical oversight and all of these other things. And the only way to even come close to getting away from the constant subjugation and oppression is to, in some cases, join them, which is just giving them more access to oppress and subjugate you and send you to die. Like, it was all kind of very effed up in a way. But also I think in this entire book, the two chapters that are, I would say, kind of the most significant are chapters 12 and 13, which are the it's the prejudice and discrimination, and then atrocities and genocides, because and maybe I'm just saying that because those chapters literally in most of my reads where I'm going over it with a fine-tooth comb and I'm adding more tabs and adding more notes, I need to literally finish a day reading chapter 12, and then I need a couple of days in between before I can even touch chapter 13, because they're just so heavy and dense. And the way that you see that the average imperial citizen was okay with the things that were happening as long as it wasn't happening to them. There's a line, it was just something about how they gave away their rights for the idea of security, and it was no, they gave away the rights of others for the illusion of their security. And I remember the first time I read that, I stuck my bookmark in it, I slammed the book shut, I put it down on the table, and I walked away, because I was that is exactly how it goes here as well.
That's stupid history, man.
I was it was such a call out to the way that we are as humans.
So
and it hurt. It was so wild. I was like, damn, we do suck.
I mean, time to get real world here. Kind of have two examples. We'll wrap up, Matthew. I'm so sorry. I know we're running a little,
I do have an answer to your question about the recontextualization, but
one oldie example, one new example. In Rome, most average citizens didn't care how many emperors were getting stabbed or cooed or whatnot. The minute the price of bread goes up, then we riot.
Yeah.
In America right now, and this is true everywhere, you know what? Trump's approval ratings are down. He got 30%. He's not good. He's not the all-powerful popular leader. I think he's an aging guy who's probably got dementia. Big reason why he's been really screwing it up this time around. I mean, maybe more so. Quite frankly, because of the dang tariffs and the economy. And quite frankly, this is the cynic in me, in my full and kind of the very clumsy ice raids, if you ask me. But it's all horrible. But my cynical, deep, depressing take when it comes to humanity is he could be getting away with all the stuff on immigration and whatnot. He keeps touching the money and the economy, and that's why people are getting really mad.
ExxonMobil told him he was wrong.
The prices of bread in America is going up. And that making a lot of the why you read Fox News, the wine moms mad, and the ice raids are just so clumsy and just sluggish and horrible. Where it's I don't want to say oh, you could do this precisely and strategically, but the cynic in me is you probably could. I probably could if I were the dictator and wanted to do horrible things. I'm not. We wouldn't do it anyway. But it's it's true. That's why we're seeing a lot more.
So not is crazy.
That's why I think we see a lot more. The protests this time around, because economy's going down. We're probably in a recession or heading towards one, and that's just gonna make people mad, because that's what people always get mad about when things get really bad. It's not a moral. This is why me and Matthew, to some extent, maybe think Nemec's wrong, or at least he's wrong in the real world. Because, hey, if our money is good, and if I have a nice apartment, do I really need to be authoritarian and democratic? And he's hey, I got a nice house. Price of gas is down. Whereas,
Nemec is an idealist, though. That's he's a baby. He's baby, and I think.
You debating because I'd be the cynical philosopher.
Yeah. You're Cassian. You're Cassian in this instance. Where you're just eh.
No, I'd probably be like Cassian, where it's I'd be a cynic the whole time, but I'd still be in the rebel base with you guys, even though it's we're gonna lose. I'm still fighting alongside you guys, but we're still gonna lose. But I think you're absolutely right, Ash. I think on this one. So,
I want to just answer the question of recontextualization. And it is in the notes, but I want to mention, we mentioned the Clone Wars. This is a good way to put time to wrap up. Hint, hint. It's 11 o'clock.
It's 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
that's fine.
It's fine for 3 people.
For 3 people. So I could have yapped for 7.
I know.
Maybe 10.
Congratulations. I'm glad. I need to go to bed.
I won the yap war here.
Well, so the Clone Wars, I mentioned the meat grinder. Again, what recontextualized that was I was very focused on the Clone Wars as the emergency measures and the manufacturing of this greater consolidation militarily, the institutional things. And I'm not wrong in focusing on that. I mean, Clone Wars does that. I think Revenge of the Sith a little bit does that with Obi-Wan's points. But to say that the real the reason that institutional consolidation was accepted was because Palpatine is this is definitely the parallel with Hitler, but also with Trump and with so many others. I've come to save you from this crisis. And so that was Caesar. Caesar, right? Exactly. I mean, even Constantine to some extent, although I have a more complicated view of Constantine, but
I thought you meant Admiral Constantine. I'm so Star Wars pilled right now. It's not even funny. I was like
Emperor Constantine.
Yeah, I realized that.
That guy.
The third one I thought.
Who was the second? Oh, the horror.
John Constantine from.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of histories that are really written with a perspective, Eusebius's history is all about how God wanted Constantine to be emperor. Anyway, that's way too idealized. But I mean, being the savior, and what what you have in the notes here, Joel, is interesting. That it shows us how the Clone Wars, Galactic Civil War, the First Order, Resistance War, all one long Star War. Go watch Star Wars. It's one Star War.
Skywalker Saga, only on DVD or on Disney.
But especially the George Lucas. I mean, with Palpatine, at least he dies, and then the Imperial Remnant goes off. Yeah, I mean, there is a very, that is kind of the World War One-ish parallel. Maybe this is, Chris Kempshall, the World War One expert, right? Saying, like we talked about the Treaty of Versailles, and probably just the effect of World War One on Europe as a whole. That in some contexts, it maybe you can say it helped the rise of democratic norms. I know we've talked about Woodrow Wilson, but he also was like, okay, international cooperation. Let's try and do this now. That eventually gave us the UN. Of course, Nazi Germany saying, Hitler, I'm the solution. So with Palpatine continually presenting himself as the solution to the galaxy's problems, thereby becoming the problem. Also maybe a similar kind of thing. The Empire as a successor state to the Republic and a revolutionary force against the Republic, if you will. And we'll talk about the separatists being all enclosed into that as well. So different little details there, but again, overall, the point being Chris Kempshall, Beaumont Kin giving us this incredibly coherent narrative that is meant to engender hope, right? It is written for that purpose, but a realistic hope of saying this can happen again if we're not vigilant, because that's the thing I disagree with Nemec, right? It's the vigilance against tyranny that's hard and unnatural. Tyranny can be natural because it's easier. But constantly needing to remember who we are.
Yeah, and I think this is my last point, and then we'll end it up. I promise. Yeah, and that's the thing I love about this book more than anything. It's just it takes the saga, which, let's face it, was made very weirdly. You got a original trilogy, and then George makes the prequels. 10 years later, and some things have changed, some things have very much stayed the same. You get a sequels, which he did not even involved with under a different company, which also has a lot of incoherent things too to it. And then we have the comics, the books, all those things that retroactively get added and all that lore stuff, which sometimes, like, how did all this Crimson Dawn stuff happen in the 1 year after Empire? I don't know. Takes all that and makes a very coherent, like, oh yeah, I totally now believe all this has all happened. And makes it a single readable, beautiful, interesting narrative. And that is the, as a lore junkie, that is the best, that is the ultimate praise I can give it, as well as a history nerd as well. So yeah. But let me get the book out one more time just to show it off.
It's so gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, everybody.
Look at all the tabs and lines.
Need more tabs,
so many notes. There's highlighting. There's a lot.
Gosh. Yeah, I could never do
this
that.
This is my research copy, though. Like,
I'm very anti-highlighting in books. I freak out when people like
of course, you have multiple copies, right?
I have a second copy on order, actually.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because my partner was just like, I feel like for some of our Star Wars books, we need like a research copy and an actual, we can read this copy. And I was like what? And he was like, The Mask of Fear, Leia, Princess of Alderaan. We have one for we actually have the 3 phase 1 adult books, 2 copies of each. Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire. And I was like, I don't think I've put that much like stickies and notes in it. And he was like, can you read your copy of Leia, Princess of Alderaan? And I'm like, it scared Claudia Gray.
Did.
Gosh.
I was there.
No, it's still, it scared her more at Comic-Con because she didn't realize it could get worse after Celebration. And then I was like, yeah.
Scared, not scared. She didn't scare.
Then I reread it again. And she was like, I don't know. This is terrifying. Yeah. But she was terrified the first time she saw it. She was like, you could see how do you still read this in her eyes? And I was like, very carefully. There are like long sticky, there are several of these just covering full pages in that book.
Fun times.
Yeah. And I have things that need to be transcribed onto big sticky notes like this because there's not enough room for me to
Those are big sticky notes. Here. Those are giant sticky notes.
They're giant sticky notes.
That's amazing.
There also still not enough space for some of my thoughts about this book. Anyways, I might actually just do a video about Jedi coding, which is like the Hayes codification of the Jedi.
Don't plug yet. We haven't finished. We haven't got to wrap up first. Then you can
almost there. Almost there.
So true. That's a cry for help. That's me saying, stop me from doing this. Yes. I have a problem.
Well, on that note, I mean, Joel, do you have any more points?
No. Great book. Read it. But also, read fictional history, yes. Please, people, read actual history too. Be inspired to read the actual book that this is inspired by. Read some books on actual theory. Like, I don't even know if you will agree with this book or not, but read it. It's actually what you should, read it. Read actual history too. Just don't say the Ewoks or the Viet Cong. I know history. Yay.
Read history. And also, not to quote Krennic, but words still have meaning.
Yes.
Not everything is fascist. If somebody's throwing up a Nazi salute, they're probably at least a neo-Nazi.
Especially if they support right-wing parties in Germany.
Exactly.
That is also true. There is a certain somebody I'm thinking of approaching trillionaire status that so many people support. And they're like, but I don't support Nazis. No, you're just supporting a pretty big neo-Nazi. Yeah. But words still have meaning. Read more because yes, fiction is wonderful, and it can help us like think about things, but real like nonfiction texts, whether that be creative nonfiction, purely academic nonfiction, those things are what is actually going to make the fiction that you're engaging with make sense. It provides it with the context, which makes it important.
I read from different authors too.
Yes.
Again, you might not agree with this guy. I don't know if I 100% agree with this guy, but you know what? At least I feel like I'm learning something.
There we go. Fun times. On that note,
question your worldview.
Yeah.
Yes. It's been fun. It's been great as always. It's fun to hang out, fun to chat. I think we did a good job making it coherent enough. I think we were clear enough. Joel, good job leading us through. Folks who've stuck around 2 hours and 40 minutes later, thanks for sticking around. Even if you caught a part of this, thanks for catching a part of this. And also on Spotify and Apple. I think, let us know what you think. What do you think of Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire? What you think of I forgot what our what visions in English or Japanese and all the other things we talked about almost 2.5 hours ago that I don't even remember anymore.
Will Mara Jade return in the next 10 years?
Yes. Or is she already Tava Red? There's a question there. And of course, Bad Batch Sanctuary and or season 2. All that fun stuff. Yeah, let us know in the comment boxes down below or on socials. We'll get to those in a second. Those boxes ain't going anywhere. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thanks again for the super chat earlier in the show. Ash, plug away. Thanks again for joining as always. I know you're putting away your home one. Where can they find you on the internet now and in the future?
Yeah, cool. Quick. One last shout out to Chris Kempshall. This book made me realize my dream of writing the in-universe biography of Mon Mothma. And I thank him every day as if he's like a deity. He's not. Chris Kempshall is just a guy. He will be the first one to tell you that. Maybe I'm the first one to tell you that, but he'll reiterate it. I can be found on most social media platforms at Bejeweled Mothma. Bejeweled like the Taylor Swift song, and then Mothma like Mon Mothma.
Like
and
Mother.
Also at Mothma Updates, which will be making a comeback after I stop crashing out about the amount of
Taylor Swift
snubs that Genevieve O'Reilly received this award season. I'm not in a good place over that. Just mentally. It's still making me angry.
We got a Taylor Swift party on Thursday.
Now. We have a Taylor Swift party on Thursday. But you can find my Mon Mothma stuff at Mothma Updates on most social media platforms and at the Mon Mothma Project on YouTube. I literally might make another video about this book and talk for 10 hours. It might be uploaded in multiple parts. Because I'll dehydrate. But we'll be making a comeback because also Reign of the Empire 2 comes out later this year.
Yes.
And it's going to be awesome. And I'm so excited. And I'm also terrified because I have some pretty scary headcanons that I'm terrified are going to be real. Yeah.
Sometimes.
But that's
look
where
forward to bring you back on when that happens.
And on Instagram, you can also now find me at Wild Magic TBR because I'm documenting what I'm reading this year. Because my to be read list is so long that I could turn it into a Wild Magic chart, like from D&D, and roll a D100. And right now, I think it's funny that you brought we're talking about Beaumont Kin a lot, but Dominic Monaghan, because literally I'm reading Lord of the Rings right now.
There we go.
Nice. I love it.
And I was like,
is it your first time?
We have so much in common. No, it's just been like a decade since I've read Lord of the Rings. So in my it gets to that point where you've read so many books between it. Like I've read like 900 books since then that I'm like,
literally,
have I read it? I know that I've read it. I don't remember anything. Like, I know the story still. I could hold a conversation about it, but it's a 500-page book, and most of it is no longer in my memory banks. So
fun times. Ion Middle Earth. There we go. Joel, thanks for leading us through this all. The meandering path. You charted a meandering path through. We got home. We got there. Where can they find you on the internet?
Charted through the unknown regions. Yeah, you can find me at JID20234 on Blue Sky. Again, JID20234 on Blue Sky. The Ion Canon Blue Sky account, ioncanonbisky.social, where I'm trying to post more stuff. Chris Kempshall actually retweeted us today for the podcast. So very nice. Us. Yes, I hope.
And he called me out.
Nah, he did. Yep. He did. I hope he watches that video I sent to Patrick Stewart as Lenin because he likes World War One. He's a cool guy. I hope one day that I too could be a Star Wars historian, but like a cynical one, which I am like in real life. But also I would totally research the ancient Sith Empire. So that would be me. Yep, and of course find me in the Discord. Ask me questions, game night, movie nights, all sorts of fun stuff.
Yes. You can find my reading list on my personal Instagram. I'm in UG1138. There, it's also my Blue Sky. I am still on the Bird app. I don't really do much on it. There's some Swifty stuff going on in the Bird app, which is kind of funny. So that's NUG485. And then Tractor Beam. It's late. I'm tired, guys. Tractor Beam on this Wednesday. Hunt for the Pocket number 5. Legacy Vader number 12. Again, run, don't walk to your local comic book shop for Legacy Vader number 12. It is that good. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to Joel coming on. I'm gonna look at those runs as well. Sequel trilogy, love. Sequel era, love there. And check out on Blue Sky at thetractorbeam.bisky.social. And then next week, I have an idea for next week. I won't spring it on you, Joel, but I'll chat about. We'll figure it out. And then we'll come back here next time. 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Until then, let's blow this thing and head home.